every morning on 97.3 City FM and, of course, on Channel 1 Television, also on all our socials. It's a platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. The show, as always, is live and interactive. You can join the discussion via our WhatsApp line 020-444-7033, 020-444-7033, or 0549-986-996. A major thing happened this week, a major thing which formed part of John Dramani Mahama's social contract with the people, call it the National Economic Dialogue, which brought together experts from various fields of the economy, various aspects of the economy to deliberate and brainstorm on what the problems of the country is and to make recommendations on the way forward. The finance minister was a key participant. He sat through the entire session, and our understanding is that details from this particular dialogue will inform his budget. He presents the budget to the nation on behalf of the president next week, Tuesday. So we'll look at some of the areas that were talked about. 6 thematic areas in all came up for discussion, and there are recommendations around all these thematic areas. Areas which include prioritizing the efforts to restore macroeconomic stability and regaining confidence in the economy, pursuing aggressively inclusive and sustainable growth for economic transformation, promoting private sector-led growth to unlock the full potential of businesses, and innovatively addressing the infrastructure deficit to advance economic transformation. They also looked at implementing structural and policy reforms, especially in key sectors for growth, and also to promote good governance, accountability, and how to eliminate corruption, amongst many other things. So we'll look at all these things that they've talked about in the course of the 2-day event and see what becomes of the economy from Tuesday, when the finance minister tells us what the plan of the government is for the country. There were key other things which were discussed. Of course, they form part of the 6 thematic areas. The public sector came up for discussion big time. The SOE's energy sector, the cocoa board or the cocoa sector, and all of that came up for discussion. We'll do our best to touch on almost all of them with our guests this morning. But just if you're wondering, did you see anything different? How do you feel about economic dialogue? I mean, what was your thinking around it? We want to know via our WhatsApp line we just announced to you, and which, of course, is on the screen. We'll be happy to hear from you on all of these. So I'll take a short break. I'll return. I'll provide you some updates, introduce my guests, and then we'll get the discussion underway. Once again, you're welcome. This is The Big Issue. You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue. My name is Selorm Adonoo. We're looking today at the big conference or summit or event that happened in Accra for 2 days, call it the National Economic Dialogue. We'll look at the fallouts from that dialogue. There were other side issues. For example, the major political party, the biggest opposition party, the New Patriotic Party, was not officially in attendance. Were they invited? Were they not invited? What's the deal? We want to understand that also from them when they come here today. What are the takeaways from this National Economic Dialogue? Also, the Galamsey appears not to be going away. A number of issues have arisen. This week, Arocha Ghana, a conservation NGO, called for 2 police chiefs to be transferred or removed from post, mainly in the Achim area. Their point is that these 2 officers are not helping the fight. We don't know exactly what the situation is, but we'll try and look at that. Are you impressed about the Galamsey fight so far? Is it improving at all? Is it getting worse? The minister has been going around the country making strong statements here and there. Is it working? What else can we do? If you live around any of the water bodies? Are the water bodies clearing up? Are they getting worse? What's the situation? Let us know. All right, let me provide some update. Now, government has pledged to implement key policy recommendations from the 2025 National Economic Dialogue, reaffirming its commitment to structural reforms and private sector-driven growth. The two-day dialogue, which focused on 6 priority areas, including macroeconomic stability, outlined a strategic roadmap for achieving long-term economic resilience. There is more in the following report by Channel One News' Emmanuel Opon.
After 2 days of critical deliberations and breakout sessions focused on addressing Ghana's economic challenges, key stakeholders from academia, industry, policy making and the private sector have outlined strategic recommendations to help revitalize the economy. The managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abena Amoah, urged the Bank of Ghana to engage in deeper collaborations with the private sector to foster a more inclusive approach to economic management.
Governor of the Central Bank, we understand that due to liquidity requirements, there's a big pot of cash that banks have left at the central bank. Private sector says, let's come up with a framework. Let's create a 10 billion CD fund, a 15 billion CD fund. Let's take that money and on-lend to targeted priority agreed sectors. Agribusiness, garment.
Addressing the inefficiencies within the state-owned enterprises, particularly the Electricity Company of Ghana and Cocoa Board, participants called for urgent structural reforms to prevent these entities from further straining the national budget. The dialogue also served as a platform for key government officials, including Finance Minister Dr. Atu Forson, who reiterated government's commitment to fiscal discipline.
What I would like to say is that beginning 11th of March, the government will introduce the 2025 budget statement and economic policy. Most of the concerns you've raised, you'll begin to see them in the budget. But don't leave the government alone. We call on you to support the government in educating the public, for the public to understand that the time has come for us to reset and reform the economy.
For his part, Dr. Johnson Esiama, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, pledged to implement measures aimed at tackling monetary challenges, contributing to economic slowdown.
You know, that look, we have to be transparent. It is about restoring the public trust. It is about getting Ghanaians to understand what we do as a central bank. And so I was telling the Guta president, for example, I told him we are coming to Makola.
Correct.
We are coming to sit with them.
Okay.
And we will get them to understand why, for example, we need to jack up the rate or why we need to lower the rate.
Delivering the keynote address at the closing session, Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman reaffirmed the Mahama's administration's dedication to sustaining economic growth and implementing policies that provide relief for businesses and citizens alike.
The reset agenda is both ambitious and necessary. It requires a concerted effort from all of us. That is government, private sector, civil society, every Ghanaian citizen. And I want to assure you that the government of Ghana is fully committed to translating these resolutions into concrete action. I have noted all the homework you have given us. Our promise is to collaborate with all sectors and all sections of Ghana to ensure that we deliver a homework worthy of an A. We will work with stakeholders so that the action points are implemented effectively. This means ensuring that we take sustained action in the areas of fiscal reforms, private sector support, infrastructure development, and good governance.
All right, so that was a report put together by my colleague, Emmanuel Opon, setting the stage for our discussion this morning. My guests for the morning, Professor Patrick Asuming, who is an economist at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, Economic Advisor Office of the Vice President, Honorable Chunibu Afoko, MP, Mansoum Kwanta, on the ticket of the MPP, and Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program. All right, just to also set the scene, we have a communique from the National Economic Dialogue held from the 3rd to the 4th of March 2025 at the Accra International Conference Center. And a number of things have been proposed or talked about in this. This is how the areas, the recommendations were introduced. And we, the participants, recognizing that a comprehensive report on the National Economic Dialogue will be submitted to the President for consideration and implementation, wish to call on government to, 1, prioritize efforts to restore macroeconomic stability and regain confidence in the economy by, they stated a number of things which we may look at, aggressively pursue inclusive and sustainable growth for economic transformation, promote private sector-led growth to unlock the full potential of businesses, innovatively address the infrastructure deficit to advance economic transformation, implement structural and policy reforms, especially in key sectors for growth, and also promote good governance, accountability, and eliminate corruption relentlessly. So these are the things the government will have to be dealing with over the period, and we hope that a lot of these will have expression in the finance minister's budget as he prepares to read it on Tuesday. Welcome once again. Prof, let me start off with you. Were you at the Economic Dialogue?
Yes, I was.
You were. So what were your impressions generally?
Well, I was very impressed by the caliber of people who were there, from both people with technical knowledge, businesses, former governors, and I think the sessions were well organized. And I think the discussions that the committee that I sat in, I think you could see people were really committed to coming up with...
Which committee did you sit in?
The one on the growth with depth.
Okay.
So I think, and then at some point I briefly sat in the committee on policy and structural reforms. And it's not just the caliber, but the substance of the discussion. You could see people were very committed to, genuinely discussing and coming up with solutions. So, overall, I thought that it was, the quality of the discussions were very, very good.
I see. Honorable Foucault, you were not there. Your side was not represented as a group, but of course some of your key members, KK, the former GMPC, KK Sapon was there, former governor was there, and a few other people. Were there any particular reason why we did not see the party there?
Thank you, Selorm, and good morning to viewers and listeners. So, for that program, we've had this issue or complaints about NPP not being represented and all that. But my personal checks could not hit on any formal invitation. I did check that there was a written invitation to the party that we know of. I haven't come across any. So it's been said across, but I'm not aware of any formal invitation. Yeah.
But nonetheless, some of your people were at the program. And so, for all you've heard about the program, maybe from media reports, reading from here and there, what would be your general impression about the dialogue?
Yeah, if you start with the inauguration of the President Muhammad, when he was inaugurated, fast forwarding to State of the Nation, and of course coming to the economic dialogue, you could see the same tone that is coming across. The same tone of we inherited debt, this is an economy that has been mismanaged, and so what we have termed, and he himself said it, it's all about lamentations. So it wasn't anything really new. We've seen and heard it, right from being sworn in to the economic dialogue. So nothing really new. And as we go along, some of the issues that were hit on, we would talk about them in detail. But for some of us, we didn't see much new. It's all about complaints, lamentations.
And the dialogue. The dialogue was made up. It wasn't a forum for NDC people per se. They were very technical people from industry, from academia, CSOs, etc., who were there. So all these people were lamenting.
No, but you see, Selorm, the tone is set by, the number one gentleman of the country. So if you listen to the president, his address, that sets the tone. If you listen to the vice president, the closing remarks, these are, they're at the top. So what they said really matter. And if you listen to the president well, it's all about complaints about the previous government. And if you're having an economic dialogue, I think the focus should be about the future, what you plan and hope to do, but focusing on the past and hating on issues like debt, as if there hasn't been debt prior to 2017 and all that. It's quite unfortunate because the country was under an IMF program prior to 2017. So what is really surprising that there's so much being said about debt and so much, lamentation all over. So because he is the leader, he set the tone. I think right from the beginning, the appetite wasn't good.
The debt situation, of course, there was debt before 2017 and all of that, but the debt situation had become very unsustainable, hence DDEP, etc. So the situation we found ourselves in was quite unprecedented. Our debts had ballooned. Our inflation rate at the time, was way off the roof and a whole lot. So the situation at the time was not comparable to any that we had seen in our history. So that was quite unprecedented. So it perhaps requires more effort. The energy sector that we are having today has been the worst for a very long time. So yes, the situation prior to 2017, there was some bad situation, but the situation has grown to worse. I think that's where the distinction is really.
You see, the challenge I have with this is you can't pick one item and talk about it in isolation. It's a whole system. And if you talk about liabilities without talking about assets, then you are not being genuine. You are not giving a balanced reportage. So if you're telling Ghanaians that there's been accumulation of debt, where did the debts go? What did we do with the debts? Were the debts just acquired and tagged debts? They were acquired to support services that Ghanaians need. Infrastructural works that Ghanaians need badly. So if you're talking about the debts, if people are calling it unprecedented, then talk about the unprecedented programs, the social intervention programs. Talk about the infrastructural works that the administration also did, which are unprecedented. So it has to be balanced.
So Agenda 111 is one of the things you refer to, but we now know that none of those Agenda 111 projects has been operational. Only one has been completed, but even that, we understand is just a shell. There is nothing. The recent works show that each of those three that we understand have been completed will require $8 million or so to stock or to finish. So the infrastructure, a lot of the Agenda 111 projects are the foundation stages. free SHS consumption, but it's investment in the future. But so many challenges with that and all of that. So people think that the debt levels are not commensurate with the development that we have seen. That's the problem.
I mean, you see, when people talk without numbers, without backing these with actual facts on the ground, it becomes unfortunate. Agenda 111, we know the progress that it has made. I mean, in my own backyard, in Achima, Kwangoma constituency, there's one in a town called Trede. And this Agenda 111 hospital, I can tell you, it's completely done.
Yeah, but it's not operational.
Yes. You see, now people start shifting the goalposts. They start, oh, nothing has been done. That's how it starts. Nothing has been done. And then they realize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have been done. Then now they change it to, it's not operational. It's not operational. So the investment that has gone in, constructing the hospital, stocking it, getting it ready, that one is nothing. Now it is about it being non-operational. And if you're going to have a hospital operating, of course, you need certain things. And one of the key or critical items that you need is the staff, the people that will work there. And now what do we see? If we see terminations of health workers.
The termination were new people.
You know, they were new people, but you need to resource these hospitals.
Yes.
Now, experience, if you have 1, 2 specialists, they need to be backed by a whole lot of supporting staff.
So all those people to back them are those who have been dismissed.
Yeah, I mean, if you are having a number of health personnel being dismissed, then think about it. How do you start new hospital and operate them? You need staff to run hospitals. So
let me provide you some information. The health minister, Komna Minta Kando, was on some tour recently. I mean, last week thereabout. And when he got to the Trede hospital, he says that hospital requires 100 million Ghana cedis to make it operational. That doesn't look like a complete hospital. A hospital that has been completed. 100 million, that's a lot of money.
I mean, I hear that, but this has to be verified by, a third party. I'm not doubting him, but this is a hospital that is
just a shell.
No,
there's nothing in there.
No, if you Google and you look at the pictures, if you have detailed pictures of inside and all that, this is a hospital that is next to my hometown. I go there, it's a walking distance. I go there almost every while when I go, to the hometown. So I know the inside out of it. It's done. This is a hospital that is done. But you see, Selorm, if you go out looking for issues,
you'll find issues.
You would always find issues. No matter what, if you built the best hospital equipped with the most high-tech equipment and whatever, if someone went in with a mindset of looking for issues, of course you'll find issues. You'll be comparing it to whatever, and you'll find issues. But I tell you, the ones that have been completed, they are ready to go. All they need is to be operationalized
with staff. So that
of course, I'm not just saying.
Let's revoke the revocation of appointments.
That is key.
And get the people in there. But someone wants to know whether these guys are recruited after December 7, and why do you wait to recruit them after December 7 if operationalizing the hospital was such a key, matter to you? But of course, let's not spend all the time on this. We are here for the economic dialogue. So, yes. So your initial thoughts on that's well noted. So, Prof. So some of the areas, right, they look like things that we ought to know and we ought to be doing already. I'll start from the very first one, which is prioritize efforts to restore macroeconomic stability and regain confidence in the economy. I mean, that's very broad. So it has things under it like enhancing coordination between fiscal and monetary policy operations and achieve alignment, reviewing the foreign exchange retention regime to support economic stability, implementing major tax reforms that expand the tax net, including property rates, revise VAT rates, and address revenue leakages. Also overhauling the PFM system, ensuring compliance with the PFM Act 2016 Act 921, and reforming the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018 Act 982, reforming SOEs and enforcing transparent financial reporting and good corporate governance practices, strengthening expenditure controls in public agencies and resource internal audit regime to be effective, and establishing a credible medium-term expenditure framework that ensures adequate provision of funding for projects before commencement. These are the things under prioritizing efforts to restore macroeconomic stability. But these appear like things we know already. So did we need a dialogue, a national economic dialogue, to tell us this?
I agree with you that, I mean, on the surface, the list and that the one that we just read, they don't look incredibly new. My sense is that, you know, there was a detailed report, at least the group that I participated in. When I look at the discussions and the recommendations and what eventually made it into the communique, there's a sense that perhaps the specific details will probably be in the comprehensive report that will be sent. And indeed, I think broadly, you can't argue with the broader suggestions, and you can't say these are new things that have been suggested. But I do know that there were some specific recommendations, and these ones are generally kept. I don't know why the committee and the organizer chose to go about it this way.
Yeah, this summary, which is fine, it helps in the communication, etc. So this summary will be the snapshot of everything. I mean, it's a summary because perhaps the most important part of it, summarizing everything. So maybe the details, as they have said, so they said they recognize that the comprehensive report on the National Economic Dialogue will be submitted to the president, you know, but they wish to call on government to do the following. Okay, so so that's fine. Let me speak to Prof. Khalid. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Were you at the summit, the dialogue? Okay,
yes,
I saw your boss there. Your boss delivered the keynote address on the last day, on the second day.
The closing address.
Yes, the closing address. Many have said that, like I just asked Professor Suni, these are not particularly new or fantastic ideas. The ideas we know about every day.
Yep.
Why should they take a dialogue to tell a government which has won power that these are the priorities or these are the things to do? You have to prioritize efforts to restore macroeconomic stability. Even before winning the election, the government, which was opposition then, should know or should have known or ought to have known that after winning, this is what we have to do. Do we need a dialogue to tell us this?
Selorm, I mean, stemming from good morning to everyone in studio, and the Ramadan Mubarak to the Muslim community out there, and happy International Women's Day.
I tell you.
Right. So, I mean, stemming from your position and preamble, there's nothing new under the sun. Right? I mean, things have to be revisited based on the exigencies of the time. And as you and I and anyone else around this table would attest to, we're not in usual times. Right? So, and unusual times calls for dialogues like this. I mean, you are at a time where a central bank is posted losses, where inflation is parodic, where currency stability is an issue, where we are under a domestic debt exchange program, where blue chip investments such as pensions have never been touched before. Having been touched tells you that we are in extraordinary times. And such extraordinary times require extraordinary engagements. And that's what is resulting in a national economic dialogue. But for me, the feature about this dialogue, we see when you're talking about economic management, we talk about qualitative variables and we talk about quantitative ingredients that would come in. We talk about economic stability. We talk about the macro and the macro. Right. What this tends to do is to have a buy-in, right, of stakeholders to say, look, your concerns are valid. We're in a dire situation. We're in an important stage and at the crossroads of our economy. What can we do to restart it? I was in a committee which was structural reforms, where you had interesting and very eminent people like the eminent Togbe Afede was in there because we dealt with two elephants in the room, which was ECG and Cocoa Board. And we had the former Cocoa Board MD and who was also one of the immediate past heads of the GMPC, KK Sapon, and under the Kufuor era. So he being present in that room gave a nationalistic color to whatever discourse we're having. We had the likes of Paul Akwa, who was a central bank governor, an astute central banker, right, under the Kufuor era. So the color in which all of this and the flavor it brings to the national spectrum tells you that it was serious business. And to have them in one room tells you that we are calling and rallying the country, right, around our national flag to see how we can revitalize and inject confidence into the economy. And that's exactly what we did. And if you look at the opening address by the president, where he calls for hope and a restoration of stability, and you look at the closing, right, which was complemented by the vice president, speaking about deepening the cuts, not just horizontal, but vertically and deeper into getting sustainability as far as the economy is concerned. And I think that this goes a long way to even attract investor confidence. They sit back in Durban or in Joburg or in Geneva anywhere and say, look, these people are serious. They know they have a problem. They've come together to see how they can judge or to have it. As I said, I mean, we all talk about the Marshall Plan. So talk about Africa wanting a Marshall Plan. It was an extraordinary time that allowed a Secretary of State in the US to put together a Marshall Plan after a world war. Right, for economic recovery. So if we have inherited an overheated economy which is yet to even cool off, it is only right to bring captains of industry, academia, civil society. I mean, the likes of Franklin Kujo, among others, from the civil society space and civil society wanks, all came to the table. So you finish this, you give out a communique. And Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, Her Excellency, the Vice President, made a fundamental point at the closing. She said, look, this is just not the stop of it. We're going to continue with the discourse. We're going to engage government. We're going to engage those that matter. And you see at the last plenary, they brought key sector ministers. Energy, very critical to the economy. Finance, very critical to the economy. Right? And you saw the presentation of the macro issues as far as the economy and the indicators are concerned by the erudite finance minister. And he spoke on national TV. And have we ever had a finance minister stand before national television in 30 plus slides presenting the state or the macro state of the country as far as the economy is concerned? Never in the history. Not that I know of. There may be. But he did that. And that should tell you that we are trickling it down to the ordinary person. Right. And this was telecasted live on national TV. So what it meant is that every nook and cranny of the country had a feel and temperature of what it was. You had a president opening the address, calling for all and sundry to come together to see how we can actually reset the economy. So for me, to say whether we needed this or not is neither here nor there. It was needed. It is an organic generation of the creation of the economy we have inherited.
I see. Honorable Foucault, so people talk, so I mean, is there really a place for dialogues like this or conferences or summits like this for economic regeneration, instead of just sitting in your office or with a few economic brains and thinking through the problems of the country and putting a plan together that you run with? Is there a place for dialogues like this, bringing everybody together around the table to reason around the problems of the country? Is there a place for it in our national development?
Yeah, thank you, Selorm. So Selorm, there's a reason why we elect leaders. People that we call leaders come and lead us. We give you the touch. They're leaders. We shouldn't take that for granted. If you are elected as a leader, we want you. We expect that you have the capabilities. We expect that you be resolute in your actions to lead us. But if you you appoint leaders who now come in and say, everybody, now come, let's sit. What should we do? What should be the right way to go about this? You see, it starts showing weakness in the person that we all, put that trust in, that the people said, we've given you this mantle to lead. If you've got what it takes, then all this while, before you even decided to come to lead, before you had the thought of coming to lead, You had the time to put together your plan, assuming you were given the mantle. So you put together a manifesto which you had the time to consult all sort of experts to guide you. So once you come to the seat, we expect that you are ready to go. You don't come to the seat and now you tell us, let's have a dialogue. So that plan that you had, which drove you to even come to contest, to stand there, that the nation should give you that vote to lead them. What was driving it? So we see it. I mean, my side of the gap of the divide. It's more like it's buying time and sort of cuddling.
Buying time to do what?
Yeah, buying time. Of course,
they don't have.
Of course.
Look,
that is serious. Buying time because you've been given like I said, the torch that lead us. Now you realize it's tough. You realize you can't really execute as quickly as expected. So now you sort of, okay, we are doing this. Come around, let's do this. Education, come around, let's go and meet somewhere. Okay, we are working on this. You see, that is a way of buying time, saying we are working on this. We've even invited A, B, C. It cuts across. Everyone is helping. So let's wait. Things will be better. People want results. That is it.
So how about, what do you say to people? So I'm just looking at the president's 120-day social contract with the people. This was way before the election.
Yeah.
Point 4 says, I hold a national economic dialogue to discuss the true state of the economy and prepare a homegrown fiscal consolidation program to guide the budget. So this is part of their program, that they have to meet people so together they think through the problems. Of course, they might have known what they want to do, but they said they wanted to do a dialogue to discuss the true state of the economy, perhaps for a buy-in and all of that, and prepare a homegrown fiscal consolidation program, etc. There's another a kind of a forum which is in a similar form about in the education sector. That is also at point 9, convene a national consultative conference on education to build consensus on needed improvements to the sector. So all these they are doing, maybe they thought about it and they realized that bringing along the people is key. That's why we are having it done.
Selorm, I tell you, see, leadership is not it's not child's play. Leadership requires resoluteness. It requires thoughtfulness before you even put yourself up. The state of the economy. Do you need the whole nation to meet to tell you the state of the economy? You don't need that. You don't need that. You have all the figures there handed over to you. If you want to dig deeper, you have experts, what have you, to help you to dig deeper. So why do you need to gather a whole lot? And you and I know, when you gather so many people, yeah, they will present papers. I'm not downplaying the program. They'll present papers. After that, yes, some recommendations. But then you have to now gather people again to go and review those papers. And then it goes on and on and on and on. And by the time you realize, a year is gone. The services, the good life that the Ghanaians need cannot wait. We have a budget coming up on Tuesday. People are waiting. They have expectation. They are not interested in you gathering, all Ghanaians to say, Ghanaians, please, what should we do? Give us ideas. Tell us what we should do. What is the state of the economy? We didn't appoint the whole Ghana to lead Ghana. We appointed you to lead Ghana. So solve the problems of Ghana. And you've raised a lot of issues as being, linked to the previous government. So give us solutions. Don't gather people to give you papers, present papers. It's just buying time, like I said. It's a facade. I'm sorry, that is it. But I'm not downplaying on whatever that was done.
Very well. Let me talk to Franklin. Franklin was at a summit or was at a dialogue. He actually presented in one of the groups. Hello, Franklin. Good morning. Welcome to the program. You were at the event. You presented a paper, or you presented to the group on good governance, etc. What different did you say to the people that you've not said before? What was new in what you told the people?
Well, good morning to your good self and my good friends in the studio. I hope you can hear me.
Very well, very clearly.
Right, okay. Well, first of all, I've got to say one thing about the essence of some of those dialogues. The last dialogue that the NDC had, Senchi, not because I was part of it, but I saw real value. I saw reason being simply because the homegrown solutions that were adopted from that Senchi forum actually fed into the IMF program that we had, for which my good friends at the NPP prematurely jumped off, I think, in 2019, after making fantastic claims that they were going to achieve some public sector reform agenda, and on the back of some 1 million barrels per oil, very fanciful but ambitious ideas. And then obviously the whole thing, the whole public sector thing blew apart. And then reckless spending took charge. And then the rest is history, as they say. So, look, the structural reform that we committed to at the time in the IMF program, only, I think 2.5 of the 3 of the structural reforms that we committed to actually achieved before the government said, well, we've done well, so we want to do better things. We want to float a $50 billion century bond. Very, very interesting stuff. And unfortunately, the IMF partook in that jamboree and then left us where we are right now. So now we come back to the question you asked me. You know, actually, for me, in the spirit of trying to propose something relatively new, because I'm sure you've had this discussion, the last week you had the same discussion, and I think many people are asking questions. What essentially is going to be new? We are going to hear the same macroeconomic challenges, we're going to hear all the lamentations about corruption and what have you. And so we challenge ourselves a little bit at the money to see what could be relatively new, if not necessarily innovative, but somehow a bit fresh. How do we put it? A bit interesting. So my topic, I was supposed to speak on good governance and eliminating corruption, which is a very tough ask, because if you ask me, eliminating corruption is a big ask, even though some countries have done it, at least the barest minimum. So we set out at Imani to actually rename the reset, the acronym reset, to revitalizing the economy through stewardship and ethical transformation. And it's basically
revitalizing the economy.
Revitalizing the economy through stewardship and ethical transformation. To deal with the issues around good governance and corruption, right? Or bad governance and corruption. And essentially, what were we saying? If you look at Ghana's history, for the last 33 years, we've done, even before 33 years, since almost all the political upheavals we've had, so probably the economic upheavals, all the crises we've had have always been predated or prefaced by a number of economic crises. I don't want to recall them, but you know what I mean. The fact that we've been to the IMF almost 17 times is vindication enough that at almost every 4 years, we actually make a visit to the IMF, which means that we really don't keep our house in order. It's either we've had about 4 fiscal crises, had about 2 debt crises, had about 1 banking crisis, and then another crisis I've forgotten. But since 2000, by the way, with all of these crises, if you go carefully, you look at and you take a critical look at the what I call the problem, you find out that we probably do not even have a problem, because we have a apparently robust public financial management system, right? So we've had the POOF maps, we've had the BPEMs, we've had the POOF, what's it called? The GIFMIS, we have all kinds of things, TOMSCAD, all of these acronyms. Perhaps the only one we don't have is BOFUT. And I'm sure someone will look for someone will be coming up with some unique names for this acronym pretty shortly. And so we looked at it carefully and said, well, how come we've done all this stuff? We look carefully at all these things since 1997. Oh, you look at the structure, you find out that they say, okay, basically look through a budget cycle. People think through the system, they come together, they draft scenarios, they then do a budget, the budget goes through a process, then there's an audit. After audit, there's some sort of control, maybe some people are punished, a little is retrieved, and then we go back to the cycle. All because we want to obtain a fiscal regime that is probably growth enhancing, right? But every time we've done that, we've come back to square one. In fact, the current system we are running, which the World Bank actually supports, has very interesting, should I say, how do you call it, definition. They said they want to go through the whole cycle of things in order to attain what I call, what's it called? Basically promote job creation and a host of things. But for us, we've been asking ourselves, how come we don't see, we are not getting results? How come unemployment is still 14%? How come we have all these challenges in our economic, when it comes to public financial money? Because the corruption seems to be increasing. If you followed our fiscal recklessness index, almost every time the recklessness balloon from, I think between 2010 to 2015, it was around $1 billion, right? Now, between 2016 and 2020, it was almost up to 13 billion Ghana cedis. That's just fiscal recklessness, the sum of fiscal recklessness within the MDEs. So the question is, what is not working? And we take a critical look. We saw that almost all the public financial management systems are top down. They are heavy. Do this, do this. So clearly, the principal agent phenomenon, where the politician, in this case, let's say the minister, I mean, even in a scenario of the voter versus the politician, we believe strongly that this thing should work. Why are you have a PPA arrangement? Why are you not following the requirement? Why are you doing more sole sourcing than competitive bidding? Why are you doing all of this when we have robust systems in place? What we realize is that because of this top-down command approach, essentially the agent here, who happens to be the public servant, probably has more information than even the minister or the appointer, in this case even the voter here, because he knows the system, and in order to make the system simple for him, in order to deflect all this top-down command control stuff, he keeps a lot of information for himself, which is why that gentleman could sell contracts, because he knew those who could buy the contract. Remember the PPA boss? Because he had information. They call it information asymmetry. My good friend, Dr. The advisor, economic advisor to the vice president,
Khalid
essentially understands this problem, and I'm sure the gentleman from the NPP also does. So you create essentially what happens is that because these people have so much information, they're able to skirt around and game the system, and eventually we never get results. So we thought, what if we had a system where instead of this top-down process, we actually have a co-created situation, a system where both the principal and the agent are co-creating the process together. So for instance, we have ministers and chief directors who should or will voluntarily sign up to frameworks that deepen openness and another as part of the vision that they have for the ministry, right, or for the country. Then second, we have open data. They'll commit to open data and radical transparency. Open data here is simple. You see, if you don't have data that is shared and known, there's no way you can fight corruption. You see, when you remember the SML issues and all of that, they had some data and they thought, okay, this is the way to fix it. Maybe that's what they thought. And so they went procuring them at some expensive rate, and eventually we really did not see anything. But if we have that data to ourselves, then we say, but this thing can be fixed by just a toggle, do this. You don't have to spend $100 million. We can fix it. So they need to commit to a radical transparency through open data. And open data helps. If you look at, I shared a video of Elon Musk having an interview with Joe Rogan in the US just this morning. And Elon was telling Joe Rogan that, look, unfortunately, when he went in, he realized that most of the systems were not talking to each other. The government system, the federal system were not talking to each other. So checks could be generated that are not identified, and then they just run through the system. So you could actually let's say you actually be having a gym membership, and if you stop going to that gym, the gym will still be collecting the money because that's the way the system has been set up. You understand? So if there were things were talking to each other, he wouldn't have found almost $100 billion that he claims now. Could that's the value of that's the effect of not having a system that is coordinated and not have real data to do that. Don't forget, it's a top design decoder, so he was able to quickly determine what the problem is. But what have we been doing here? We've been dancing around digitalization, doing this, launching that. They don't talk to each other, right? Otherwise, why do you think we would have paid so many millions to some entity claiming they've also developed what you call GPS? What do they even call that? SRC or whatever they call it. This GPS thing, they went to Google. This country, they first came and they thought that they would do something unique from Google. Then after getting the money, they went back to Google to say, "Oh, Google, please, can you help us?" Meanwhile, all this the thing on Google was free, right? If we had the information that all these things were happening, we could have confronted them. We did, by the way, but of course, they overpowered us. The point I'm making here is that if we have open data, and this also permits what we call the open contract system, which Professor Akila Pasoya has been one of the champions, by the way. If you have an open contract system, which mimics the open data and transparency approach, some of these things you'll be known. The third level we thought was that why don't we hold a bi-weekly hybrid fiscal and maybe virtual town halls where every aspect of procurement, please listen carefully, every aspect of procurement, performance, operations, milestones tracking, and even monitoring and evaluation elements will be openly discussed. So you see, unlike what pertains right now. So for instance, there's an entity from one of these aid agencies coming to my office next week. I'm going to blast them, by the way. And they have all this top-down command control type of monitoring evaluation. You look at it carefully, over 70% of the things they want asked are not relevant to us. But they've developed this template and it's like one size fits all. It doesn't make sense. So, but if they are co-created at the first, properly understood the process from get-go, we know exactly what they want and what we give them. The meeting will not even last 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but they won't come and spend the whole day wasting my time becoming discuss. But I look at the 70% of the thing they want to ask and achieve, they've not even known us that well. You understand? So it's important that you co-create, you co-share this process with the agent and the principal. The fourth thing we thought was that what about citizens actually joining the whole stakeholder conversation, the group? With the simple digital enrollment, they can always take part in these conversations. The fifth point we thought was that, look, every month a poll shall be taken to test the pulse of the stakeholder community, those who have been part of the process. You have to be part of the process from day one to be able to take the poll. Then clearly, whoever after 6 months, the officials who do well, who do so much well, who keep to their timelines, who keep to their milestones, and properly evaluated that way in a co-creation environment, will then be awarded, not necessarily celebrated, and possibly awarded maybe with a little perks, like maybe some monetary inducement along the way. You see, naturally, you would have thought that, I mean, this is not necessarily to replace the entire process of procurement or the current system that we have. We are not saying that. We say it will complement it and want to start gradually. There are reasons why we want to do this. 2 reasons. I'll draw 2 examples from Rwanda and one from Singapore. Rwanda, by the way, introduced this system called Imihigo. Imihigo is a traditional concept of basically people openly accepting responsibility, basically setting milestones for themselves and saying that if they don't achieve, they publicly get shamed. In fact, they themselves publicly shame themselves as well as the public, and then they get out of the office. So it's borrowed from an ancient warrior concept where warriors beat their chest and said, "I'm going to defeat these people, and I'll come back. If I don't do it, shame me." You know, that sort of thing. So Rwanda started Vision 2020, right, in the year 2000. Then along the way, 5 years later, they realized that this Vision 2020, there was nothing happening. So someone whispered into their ears and said, "But what if we try this Imihigo concept? What about that?" So they eventually started looking at it, optimized it, started from the local level. At the time, Rwanda had over 130 districts. They collapsed all the districts into 30 so that they can be well managed. And then through this, they are city, what they call mayors, right? All this, city mayors, more or less. The city mayors collectively work with the how do I put it there? The staff or the people within the district, so they had M&E aspect, they had all these aspects of the district. They co-created this vision. They decided that by in a year, we want to see maybe 80% of schools in this district built. They committed to it, then openly signed that charter with the president and the prime minister coming to oversee the process. And then they say, well, this is the charter. They send it to every aspect of every part of the city. So citizens are informed that, hey, this year or by next year, our mayor has committed to achieving ABCD. 6 months down the line, they come to review. If there are problems, they change course, right? So it is co-created. It is what they call it was participatory. So by the time the year ends and the president and the prime minister and the people from statistical office come into the district to actually look at what had been attained, it will be obvious to the mayor that, look, well, I couldn't attain my result. And there may be reasons why it didn't happen. So these reasons are explored, learned, and then they move forward. Look, to cut a long story short, between 2006 and 2016, when they started this, Rwanda's GDP, in terms of real numbers, grew from about $3.2 billion to almost $8.7 billion, right? They almost have poverty. Almost all the indicators concerning what's it called, all the human development indicators were looking quite up. Now, something else happened. There was a 75% turnover of mayors between 2007 and about 2010. And these mayors were not pushed by the political appointees. No, they didn't do that. These mayors, first of all, obviously emanated from the system. And they themselves knew from the get-go that I've not achieved what I said I'll achieve, so I have to go. That's exactly what the system was able to attain. Imagine we have this system within our local government sector. Imagine you have this system where every year John Mahama goes around and has this charter for all these districts. Instead of we appointing these chief executives who will be lording it over everybody and then actually just being at the beck and call of the appointer. So everything he wants to do is either to get to the next level of being an MP and not necessarily doing work. I witnessed this myself. I was in the front plains in 2013 working on a water aid project. We were assessing their interventions. When we met the chief executive of Mamikrobo, that area, Kosko Mamikrobo area, Donko, this district chief executive, all he was planning to do was to become this chief executive of the next town, because there was a redemarcation going on and he was going to lose 80% of his revenue from Mamikrobo market. All he was planning to do is, Charlie, I want to become this the newly created district. And the planner was like, oh, Mr. Kujo, I'm just an armchair planner. And I said, but don't you have the resources? We have the people here. I say, yes, but there's no impetus. They don't see themselves as part of the process. What we are proposing is that, what if we took this approach and looked at it carefully? And then rather invest the whole system of accountability and say, look, you are part of the process. How come this procurement, you are scoring 75% sole source when it should have been, how do you call it, competitive bidding? In fact, you can't even take that decision alone because you are working within the group that have also signed on to the whole concept of performance contract. So I think clearly we are not necessarily anything new per se. These are performance contract based, but it's still a bit of co-creation. You are part of it, and their packs will grow. In Singapore, this is what happened. They have a system where they intrinsically reward people when you do well. I mean, the public sector there is beloved. Everybody wants to work there because they pay so well. Ghana, we can't afford that. So maybe we want to start incrementally because there's a bloated public payroll. But you see, in Singapore, what happened was this. In fact, this year, the Singaporean government has decided that from the get-go, everybody is getting close to about $300 if you work in the public sector. For all kinds of things, maybe healthcare and what have you. Then in the following, by year in fact, in 2 years or so, or by the end of the year rather, if you did certain things right, that is going to rise to about $500 for public sector, all public sector holders. Then you're able to get that. You know why this is useful? In 2018, Singapore returned a budget surplus. Every citizen in Singapore got $300 back paid into his pocket, in his or her pocket. The simple principle there: meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty in public office was exactly what was at play. We can marry the two and take a good look at this. And so this is the whole concept that we thought of stewardship rather than command control type of thing.
Great, very elaborate. So Franklin was one of the presenters at the forum. I'll come back to you on what you think the reception was from the organizers and government about all these ideas you threw around. But I'll come back to you on that later. Prof, we also see that government wants to aggressively pursue inclusive and sustainable growth for economic transformation. And we see agric being key here. They're talking about establishing new agricultural institutes and enhancing existing ones to foster expertise, drive innovation, and stimulate interest in industrialized agriculture production, etc. You know, it goes on and on. 68 years of independence. I mean, how important is agric to our economic emancipation or freedom? And are we realizing it too late in time if we've made that realization already? Because the whole of this segment, which is point 2 or thematic area 2, generally has to do with agric and how to develop policies to improve agric tactics, etc. How important is agriculture to our economic emancipation? And have we come to the party too late in terms of our realization and now commitment to do well for agric?
Well, I think agric is central, and it's not something, a point that anyone will belabor. I think it's always been a very important thing. I don't think we are now realizing. It's always been realized. I think if you look at different, development programs from the days of Nkrumah all the way to even recent political party manifestos, I think the agric sector has always been recognized as important. I think the challenge has been how to exploit our potential. And I think that we've struggled mightily. We've gone through Operation Feed Yourself, we've gone through different elements, and all of them seem to have their own challenges. I think right now, what we seem to be recognizing now is that if you take the previous administration's programs, the Planting for Food and Jobs, in particular the industrialization strategy, one district, one factory, it was clear that it's important we exploit our huge potential in agro-processing. But you can't do that successfully until the agric sector itself is doing well and productivity is enhanced. Because if you hurriedly set up factories to do processing and you are not getting enough of the raw materials domestically, then you end up either importing raw materials, which is not sustainable, or ultimately the factory will be operating below capacity. So I think one of the things that we need to recognize is to make sure that the linkages are clear and outlined. So if you say we want to set up I don't know which factory to mention without having a political connotation. We can say sugar. So if you want to establish a sugar processing factory, we know our dependence on imported sugar. So obviously it's a good strategy, but until you have a thriving production of these sugar canes. But it's not enough to say you have a lot of farmlands being cultivated for sugarcane. You have to think about the nature of the arrangement between the factory and the producers, whether you're going to go for outgrower streams, and then to learn about the problems that are there so that you come up with a more structural way of ensuring that we have enough production to feed the industry, but also bringing back feedback, because one of the problems is that from the farmers' point of view, they need markets. There's been cases where we produce and then we are not, a lot of it gets rotten on the farm gate. So post-harvest losses are a big issue. So you have to build your strategy to ensure that agric speaks to industry, industry speaks to agric. So for instance, we try to support farmers with fertilizers. And then unfortunately for us, when there was some outbreak, we realized that we were importing the fertilizers. This is a country that, some parts are going through some diseases, malaria, diarrhea, and even these days, cholera, coming from fields. These are fields that we can actually use to generate more organic manure to support. So I think it's coming up with a more connected, a more reasoned strategy to exploit agriculture. And I think the other thing has to do with, sometimes when we think about agri strategy, we only seem to limit it to what happens at the farm gate and the production. But there are several reasons why food inflation has been the biggest problem in the last couple of years. So there are several elements. There's what you produce, what you lose at the farm gate. That has to do with distribution channels. But it's also cost of transportation. So when we are building roads, what is the priority like? Which areas are we emphasizing? Are we having clearly in mind our agriculture strategy to ensure that food that has been produced reaches the farm gate properly? I've heard different discussions where people are speaking about using water transport systems to help, especially food production, food that's produced in the north, to get them to the south quickly. So I think it starts like agri strategy, it's agri production, but it's connected to all the other sectors. It's connected to transportation, it's connected to industry, it's connected to agribusiness, it's connected to manufacturing. So I think that's how we should see it.
Agric connected to manufacturing. You said agric must talk to industry. Was that not what the 1D1F was to do? So that for 1D1F, you look at a particular element or something which is very common in the district, and then we form a factory around it so that the district will use what it has, will process what it has, and then we have a finished product. That's one. Was that not what it was supposed to achieve? Whether it achieved that or not, maybe honorable folk will let us know. But the issue about, having enough raw materials to feed the factories, we say here in Ghana that because we don't have factories to process the raw materials, we end up exporting the raw materials to many other places in the world. Can't we also import the raw materials from other parts of the world? So cocoa, for example, we export it, mainly in the raw form. Now we get chocolate, etc. Many other things. If we set up the factory, of course, we may have some of the raw materials from here. If that's not enough to maximize the capacity of the industry, of the factory, for example, can't we also import like sugarcane and other things necessary for the sugar factory from abroad, the way others do it? At least that may still end up being cheaper than getting everything abroad.
I would never.
I'll let you have a stab at this as well.
I would never be supportive of any strategy that says we are going to build a factory that will depend on imported inputs. You see, there are different elements. If you say we are going to import machinery, that would be understandable. But why on earth do you want to, establish a factory and import? Number one, then it means that a big part of the value you are generating is going to go to wherever they are producing. If you are relying on our own imported inputs here, then we are providing a market for our farmers.
But what happens to factories in Switzerland, for example, which produce chocolate? Meanwhile, they don't really have the raw materials for the production of the chocolate like we do.
Well, that's because we ourselves, who are the primary producers of the cocoa, we have decided that we always keep exporting. If the way the world is going these days, you can't really be dependent on anyone for that. But the other thing is, with the behavior of the Ghanaian currency, if you're going to compound it with importing raw materials, in particular the one that we have what it takes to produce. I think that's what the concern is. We should be preserving the currency we generate for essential things, important things that we have no opportunity to produce locally. But I think if you have a strategy that says I will depend on imported agricultural inputs. I think that's just not a sound strategy.
I see, Professor Khalid. I mean, I saw you shaking your head.
I'm in sync with what Prof is saying. Because the point is, what we tend to miss is that when you look at freight charges, and for the matter, importation charges, among other issues, we are on a route that is not very competitive for whatever reason, given how our arrangements are. So if we start to bring in raw materials, it's the same story as just importing cars, among other issues, right? More so when we don't have a convertible currency, right? Which is by convertible currency in quotes. So it becomes much more of, we're going to compound our real situation. But as you said, processing is very important. With cocoa, for example, the more you process it, the more you add value to it. So what are we? Which part of the value chain do we want to be a part of? Prof made a very fundamental point about local consumption. I mean, America, or we get conflicts among other issues, from just for want of a good example. But there's a strong local market that consumes that before it's being shipped out here. How many of us had a beverage of cocoa before leaving home? So what is the local market in terms of consumption? Now, there are other variables that we tend to miss, right? Milk is a big component of the manufacturing of chocolate, right? How is our local dairy market like? Or for that matter, milk, if you're even going to bring concentrate whatsoever. More so in this day when health issues are very prominent and we're talking about organic foods among other issues. So there's a whole lot to look at, which is why we have to have such engagements to rejuvenate. I think Honorable made a fundamental point about leadership, that you ought to be ready before you get in. Honorable, you were ready before you took over NIB, weren't you? NIB had not posted any reports in the last couple of years. In your reign, were you able to post a report? So that's not to say you have failed. I'm just giving examples of what ought to be done. And for you to know, NIB was part of the discussions we had at the National Economic Forum. Maybe under your reign, if you had fixed it, we wouldn't even have a National Economic Forum. So these are things you have to look at. But he didn't have a lot of time at the helm. He had a few months. He had so much time to campaign to be MP. Still as MD, so you don't have an excuse for that.
If you're going to digress, then I have to jump in.
I'm just giving an example. No, he's saying that you didn't have so much time. And I said you had so much time to campaign to be MP.
No, you're bringing a different subject. I mean, my campaigning and all that, I mean, was during my leisure time. And I mean, if you want to bring NIB in, then I mean we'll talk about it.
You heard that he has stewardship responsibility.
Yes, I mean
he made an example of president. So it's leadership. I wasn't head of NIB. If I was, and anyone asked me any questions about that,
if you want to know the turnaround work that I did at NIB, I'll put it across.
That's what the president is doing, and as part of his strategy, he's organized a forum.
No, you don't need to have a forum to do that. You can present it in a form that is standardized, that is known and understood by everyone. I don't need to gather everyone to come and say, listen, this is what I've done at NIB. No. I can present it in a succinct way for people to look at it. They will consume it and understand it.
He's not presenting what he has done as president.
Yeah, what I'm saying is no. Understand me? Yeah, so I don't need to organize people around to come and say, help me think about how to turn around this institution. I went in and I fixed it, and I can give. Of course,
reports.
Which reports? I mean, financials?
Yes.
Yeah, people always talk about...
Have you posted financial reports?
Have we posted financial reports?
I'm asking, is the public aware of a financial report under your reign that is out there in the public?
Is that your assessment of success or failure?
I'm not assessing.
No,
it's a fundamental...
Is it your assessment of...
No, it's a fundamental...
If you need to know, I'll tell you that the bank went through a transformational program and we have gotten to the end of it.
It cannot be a yes or no.
It has been transformed.
That's what it tells you that an economic forum is important.
No, wait.
You're not comparing like with like. You're not comparing like with like. I'm not playing it.
I'll come back to
okay, I'll let him land.
I thought you were addressing, making a point.
No. What I'm saying is, you see, I don't want to say in this country. You see, we need to be careful how we assess performance of institutions, and I've seen and heard this across. Okay, during the SONA, during other presentations, and even at the economic dialogue, that we list some institutions and say A, B, C, D, they are loss making, and so they are not performing. I mean, that is quite a weird way of assessing institutions. Like he's saying, we've not seen your financials, so it means you are not doing well.
Words in my mouth.
No, I'm coming. That's what he said.
But you say you're not doing well. Did I say that? You can play back.
No, but that is implied.
Let me ask you.
That is implied.
You are implying, and that's
okay.
a good
Okay,
way.
let me finish. So what I'm saying is, you see, if you list institutions A, B, C, D, E, and you said, they are loss making for a year or so they are not performing. No, institutions go through cycles. Sometimes you have programs that are time bound. So you might have a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year strategy to transform institutions. So if somebody comes and pull 1 year's financials and say you've made a loss, so that the institution is down. Mind you, profit is not the only indicator of performance. An institution might be loss making today, but look at other parameters. That will tell you that the institution is turning around and is coming around stronger. And that is what is important. Not 1 year profit, not 1 year challenge. And some of the institutions that were listed, if you were to have taken time to go through some of them, their financials, if you see the investments that they've made, one of them is COCOBOD. COCOBOD has been mentioned in the State of the Nation. It's been mentioned across since the new government took over. But go into COCOBOD and see the work that has been done. They talk about their debts, and it's mentioned COCOBOD owes this, owes that, and it's easy. You're talking about. I'm coming. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. I'm coming. I'm almost done. I'm done. You can't pick an institution's balance sheet and pick just one item and say they owe this much, so they are not doing well. Why would you pick? Why would you pick?
Of the trajectory of
I get it, but why you can't pick a liability and forget about the assets? COCOBOD invested. If you look at their assets from 2017 to 2024, their asset had grown by 17 billion cedis. Check. Assets grown by 17 billion cedis. Where did this growth come from? From investments. So they got the debts to invest. Look at the investment that they've done in turning around. So if you tell me cocoa production has gone down, how do you turn it around if you don't invest in? If you tell me cocoa,
if the cocoa production is come down so badly, it keeps going down, notwithstanding the investments, what's COCOBOD supposed to be doing? The yield should go up. We export it, we get our money. That's how we've known it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so if we are not getting the yield from 1 million metric tons to around 350,000 metric tons, that is a key indicator of success.
I get it. So what I'm saying is, yes, the production has reduced from 1 million to about 500,000 metric tons, but they need to invest. They need to invest in turning the institution around. Needs to invest in chemicals. They need to invest in fertilizers. They need to invest in research and development to now boost cocoa production, because now the effect of weather is becoming so serious on cocoa production. We talk about, mining and all that, but the effect of weather is also serious. So if they don't invest in varieties that could even withstand weather, how do they turn around?
But the situation, it hasn't been improving. How long
that's what I'm
does it turn
saying.
around?
You see, it's not all investment that you expect the cash cycle to be 1 year. Some go through several cycles before you see cash flow.
So you think, notwithstanding what everybody has said about COCOBOD, for example, because COCOBOD came up for mention, ECG and all of those came up, you think COCOBOD is not a lost cause? COCOBOD is actually doing well?
You see, doing well, that's what I'm saying. We have to be having balanced reportage. Okay, I said earlier on that if you go out looking for issues, you'll find them. So if I pick COCOBOD's balance sheet today, and I look at their debt, and I say they owe whatever billions of cedis, and then I go out to make a statement on that, people might say, wow, they owe this. But I was telling you, the investments in assets, 17 billion cedis from 2017 to 2023. 2017 to 2023.
What kind of assets?
Check the.
What assets are we talking about here?
The investment in assets to turn the company around.
Give us examples of the assets that they have invested in that will turn around, so we can have a full appreciation.
No. I have told you that they've invested in assets that will turn the company around. Look, the president talked about cocoa roads, where he complained. In one breath, you are talking about a key asset, which is access routes to these cocoa farms that will help in cutting the cocoa to the various centers and so on and so forth.
It's a misplaced priority.
Sorry?
In fact, KK Sapon actually said that is misplaced because Cocoa Board should not be in the business of constructing roads. But that's another discussion.
Thank you. So if you produce the cocoa, how do you cut them to the various centers? All these are very important to make sure accessibility to the cocoa farms,
the point really is that cocoa roads, or the roads have been bad. They've been historically bad, but the yields have been higher. Okay, it's not as if we lose the cocoa beans on the farm because we are unable to cut them. We may lose some, but to the extent that we have seen the yield drop, there should be other issues which should be managerial, which should go to the running of the sector. Of course, I know Galamsey and other factors are in there. But again, that's why we have leadership, like you said. So leadership over the period should have seen to that. What we expect is that the yield should grow. Cocoa farmers should have good returns for their investment or their produce, etc. We've not seen a lot of that.
Selorm, that is what I'm telling you, that you see, people expect that every investment should turn around within, let's say, 12 months. So you put in investments in assets, they want to see the results immediately. But it doesn't always work like that. If you have cocoa that is being impacted badly by weather, El Nino, La Nina, and all those difficult weather conditions, you don't just go in, plug and play, that within 12 months you've resolved this, within 24 months you've resolved this. You need to even come up with varieties that could withstand these difficult weather conditions. You need to understand what
research.
So a lot of investors, and he was asking me to enumerate all these. All these are there. The people that went into Cocoa Board financials and just picked the debts out, if they were interested in understanding what has been that the assets have grown this much by 17 billion, they would have seen all this. I'm coming in. All the investment.
So
that's what I'm saying.
It talks about the cocoa roads.
What I'm saying.
It talks about
not just the roads.
It talks about research.
No.
Tell us
research and development.
I'm giving you
what R&D component are we
research
talking
and
about?
development, new varieties.
I'm giving
to withstand.
You see, we should be balanced in our reportage. This is not only in the SOEs. It is even about the bigger space of the country's debt. It's being said everywhere. The country owes this much, the country owes that. And I said earlier on that you are talking about the debts of the country. Where did the debts go? Did the debts just come in? Yes, the critical services, the critical needs of the country, the critical infrastructural needs of the country, the debts went into it. So when you are talking about the debts, be balanced. Don't just say as if somebody acquired this and it got whatever. It did nothing. No, there should be balanced reportage. So from the entire nations.
So the debt, for example, would you call for a value for money analysis on everything we do, so we know that, for example, this is the value this is bringing, so that even though it may increase the debt, we know that this is the value we have had. When we do those things, we'll perhaps, like Franklin has just spoken about, we will deal with issues of bloated contracts, which do not help. So we pay so much, very little to show, and the assets, the assets are few, but the debt has become so big. So when you look at the two, the two are not commensurate. That is also a problem generally. But let's get on course. I'll give you the time. Let's get on course. Since you're on the floor, we talked about the connection, agric and industry, to turn us around. What should that connection be? We saw PMJ, we saw PFJ, we saw one district, one factory. All of those in the agric space. Agric is so important. Youth in agriculture. But it does appear that we've not. That's a PFJ. We've not really reaped the benefits of the agri, even though a lot of investment is gone into that. Here we are at the National Economic Dialogue, agric has come up again. What have we done right over the past few years?
Thank you, Selorm. I mean, you see, every now and then when people raise certain issues or when certain issues come to the fore, and I look at what has been done, I say thank you to Nana Akufo-Addo for having the blueprint to transform this country. Look, the issue about restructuring the economy, turning the structure of the economy around and all that, the blueprint is what Nana Addo had. You see, this strategic transformation of the agri sector, or transforming the entire country, it was put simply as 1D1F, and it's like a nice slogan and all that. But it's based on deep, deep thoughts.
But did it work? Did it work?
It has worked to a large extent. And you see, you can't have this entirely changing everything overnight.
But he said that. He said you change the economy in 18 months.
No, but it has worked to a large extent.
In 18
I'm coming, Selorm. It has worked to a large extent. Understand it. Look, the various pockets of this country where certain commodities tend to do well. He's saying, let's look at these pockets where certain commodities tend to do well. Let's boost their production. Boost the production. Let's process what we get, add value. Boosting the production means you are producing more for the country. You are employing more to produce. Now you are going to add value, having the value chains where you are going to employ more people.
Have we seen that? Have we seen that?
It's working. Well, at least we all know.
Juice.
We all know of
Ecofi juice.
Okay, you are telling me Ecofi juice is working. I'm coming.
The only example we see.
No. There are others. There are others. I mean, we have tomato cannery and all that. They're
on the market, because what we see on the market are imported, most of the time, and so it doesn't deal with the real problem.
Selorm, now, if Ghana, we've been able to produce, I mean, the example that you gave me, Ecofi juice. Now you can find Ecofi juice on the shelves of Walmart. I'm proud as a Ghanaian. Yes, Ecofi juice is on the shelves of Walmart in the US, and I'm proud of it as a Ghanaian. Okay, that is the brainchild of Nana Akufo-Addo. The production, the processing, the either export of or consuming locally. It's a great idea. This was, you see, there are other programs. I'm coming.
The Walmart example you are giving, is it for the symbolism? Because people are not agreeing with that.
No.
Is it for the symbolism of it, or it's real impact?
It's real impact.
So so we are getting the returns, like there was a reason why we did that. We are seeing the real returns. The fact that it's on Walmart shelves.
It's achieving the primary objective of coming up with that program, that we will be able to produce, feed ourselves, and also be able to even export to replace what we've been importing.
But has there been any such replacement? We've seen the other brands rather go up. There's not been any delivery strategy to increase this whilst we reduce that.
There have been a number of programs even supporting this 1D, 1F, and PFJ and all that people don't even know. Have you heard about Gersel before? Gersel, supporting or de-risking agric. Okay, so people that go into agric production and all that, there's a program called Gersel that provides guarantees to de-risk all the risks that are associated with agriculture, for which reason finance houses have been shying away. And this has been successful in supporting some of these agricultural production. It's key. So starting right from the where we growing these crops and all that, it's been carefully thought through. And you go through the production, and I talked about the value chain. You have no idea the job creation along the value chains that we will make. Look, rice alone, I don't want to go even to the typical one. Rice alone in this country, USAID and even Ministry of Food and Agriculture, their research have concluded that paddy rice alone, we have 1 million metric tons per annum in this country. You can check from USAID, their research. 1 million metric tons of paddy rice. But as we gather them because of wastage and all that, by the time it is processed, it comes to just about 400,000 metric tons.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of wastage.
Yes.
So we need to perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We need to perfect these value chains to ensure, even right from the farm gate, how we gather this to processing centers to ensure these are processed well, they are preserved well, they are packaged, and even distributed locally. Imagine this 1 million metric tons of rice. Even if you reduce to 800 metric tons, we would have reduced our reliance on imported rice. But now, from 1 million tons, by the time we are done with processing, what gets to the market from the research work is just about 400,000 metric tons. Why should it be so? We talk about now, we have about 430,000 metric tons of cashew. 430,000 metric tons of cashew produced per annum in this country. I asked you.
So you see, the problem is not so. So you said the thing you said about the president. I lament it. You are telling us the problem.
No. What I'm saying is the blueprint.
Yes. But what effect have we seen from the blueprint? So, for example, we here at CTF a couple of years ago launched or did a crusade for local rice. It so happened that the local people did not have the capacity to produce when it really caught on, to produce to feed the people. I mean, and we saw that. So we thought that government, with all of that,
enabling environment,
will create the environment, boost production, so that the way it caught on, people became aware that local rice was as good as the others, etc., even more nutritious, etc. Now they went into the market to get it. They couldn't get it. Around Christmas, they wanted to get it for their workers. They couldn't really get it. So we expected that the agri system, the machinery, would ensure that this production was made so that people will get it when they went to the market. But
that is exactly what I was saying. That the blueprint is what Nana Addo put across. That let's produce, let's process, let's either export or replace what is being imported. And as I gave you the example of Gersel, that is helping agricultural production. This was put in place to de-risk the agricultural sector. That is how come, and rice is one of the products that is supported by this Gersel, the de-risking mechanism to support agriculture. So I'm telling you that the program was going on. You can't achieve all this overnight, but it was going on smoothly, and it was going to get to all these nooks and crannies to make sure we produce, we process, we get it to our table, or we export to replace what we've been importing. That is all.
Let Prof.
I mean, Selorm, to take off from where Honorable...
Yeah, but what I want you to say actually is...
No, let me take off from where. It's only fair.
But let me ask my question.
Honorable, he's asking for us to be fair. It's not only fair.
Let me ask my question. And I must say that, so the energy part of the discussion is there as well.
Yeah.
And we will do the energy part after the break. But just talk to me. The budget is on Tuesday. We had this on, is it Monday, Tuesday? Is the time enough for us to have enough of this feeding into the budget? Why couldn't it be earlier?
The communique was even issued. As you
but the budget is a very laborious process.
Yeah, it's a laborious process. Yes. A communique was issued just for the budget, as you would know. Just yesterday, Friday, a pre-budget cabinet was held. So what it tells you is that whatever information that has had, as far as communique is concerned and all of that, will be fed into it. Right? So there's enough time. A minute is enough in any government to actually have discussions on all of these things. And there have been processes that has gone through. So you have an economic forum, you had few days. Let me tell you, as we sit in studio, right, the people at the Jubilee House working, at the Finance Ministry working. When it's budget time, it's crunch time.
I see.
Right, work becomes very important. But to talk about issues or variables, right, economic decision making 101. If you are to go into an institution, you are a practicing lawyer. When you want to go into a transaction, or your client comes to you that I want to buy X, whatever, business whatsoever, what do you go for first? Their financials. regardless of whatever assets they have, right? Cocoa board today, how does it look? Now, for even a syndicated loan, which was just a tick box exercise, boilerplates, we went to the market, right? For the first time in the history of this country, we never cracked any sweat at assessing this or syndicating our loans. We had problems at the syndicated market, and we say cocoa board is not an issue or this is not an indicator. We're not saying that one variable.
The point is but
what I am saying, but debt is an important component, which is why I made this example that if you were to go into a transaction, you call for the books first. So if you're unable to see the books,
you see assets as well.
Yes, but if you see assets and you see liabilities, what is debt? What would we consider debt as? Where would you classify it? And in today's terms, if we quantify what? To talk about cocoa roads as an asset, let's be careful in classifying it as an asset. Is it the property of cocoa board? When the road network is not,
but it's investment.
If you to make that
investment goes to the cocoa
mining, and which is going to. But if you are going to make that fundamental decision, it is the list of your considerations that you'd make. I'm not saying it is not. So when we are talking about these things, let's look at it from that perspective. You couldn't access a syndicated loan, and you are liquid enough, or you are solid enough.
I see.
Right. So we have to look at all of these. And Cocoa Roads didn't start today. We should ask how many kilometers. Cocoa Road was poo-pooed on by his government, including his leaders.
I see.
They said we didn't chop roads. We don't chop roads in this country. Today, cocoa roads are assets of cocoa board. Roads that you said we never chopped have recently become assets of cocoa board.
I see. So
that is quite interesting. So we are playing ostrich here.
This is a big issue on 97.3 City FM and also on Channel 1 television. We are also live on our socials. Let me say that energy analyst Benjamin Isia will join us soon so we deal with the energy aspects of it together with everybody here. A few messages before I go for my break. Chris in Ashalibuchi says, Selorm, if the MPP had involved Ghanaians in the governance process by creating a platform like an economic dialogue for experts to contribute their ideas for the proper management of the Ghanaian economy, a whopping amount of $58 million would not have been invested in the most expensive hole called the Cathedral. Indigenous Ghanaian banks wouldn't have been forcefully collapsed in the name of banking sector cleanup. The all-knowing MPP officials are still going around arrogantly showcasing their failures while the research agenda is clearly felt on the ground. This from Chris in Ashalibuchi. Prince Harry in Koforia says, good morning. Ghanaians should have the trust and hope that the John Mahama-led NDC government will reset Ghana and give us the Ghana we want. You said next week by this time, e-levy, betting tax, and other nuisance taxes will be a thing of the past for Ghanaians to be free. Let me take this one from Desmond from Community 25. He says, Ghana does not need any national economic dialogue to determine the true state of our beloved country. It is just a strategy patterned to renege on the promises made by the president during the campaign season. Well, your thoughts and your comments are welcome still on 020-444-7033. I'll take a short break. When I come back, we'll have more. Don't go away.
This March, we invite you to splash in the pool of cultural expressivity and soak yourself in the celebration of indigenous authenticity in our Heritage Month. Join us for the Heritage Month launch on Friday, February 28th, as we kick off a month of unforgettable experiences. Pack your bags for the Heritage Caravan, a week-long adventure across Ghana from March the 2nd to the 9th. Discover the beauty and history of our land. Savor the flavors at the Back to Your Village Food Festival, a culinary extravaganza, March 29th and 30th. Taste the essence of Ghana. Tune in to the Heritage On Air series on 97.3 CDFM and Channel 1 TV. Feel the rhythm of our music, journey through our religious history, and indulge in indigenous Ghanaian food. Join us to celebrate our heritage this Heritage Month, where every moment is a story. Only on Channel 1 TV and 97.3 City FM.
Of their labors, toils of the brave, which have brought returns.
You're welcome back. This is a big issue. 97.3 City FM, also on Channel 1 television, on our socials as well. Your views, as always, are welcome via WhatsApp line 02044470033. And it's been displayed, it will be displayed or is displayed on your screen. Just join us with your thoughts and we'll be happy to share that with the rest of the world. Energy, the energy sector is a key one. People say that there are two SOEs or institutions that are giving the economy a lot of problems. The ECG and Cocoa Board. We've just spoken about Cocoa Board. And of course, I see in the communique the fact that Cocoa Board should be returned to the Finance Ministry. I don't know if that is really important or not, but the ECG is a major one. We understand the debt at the ECG is in excess of 80 billion cedis, and there are receivables just around 8 billion. On monthly basis, ECG used to be collecting about 2 billion. They end up collecting just about 1.5 billion. And so that means there's a lot of wastage, there's a lot of losses, technical, commercial losses at the ECG. That raises a lot of issues. So that, together with other things, are creating some issues in the sector. John Jinapor, the sector minister, yesterday addressed a brief press conference, and he said quite a number of things about what they hope to do about the sector. They want to do another gas processing plant. There's few conversations around ECG, etc. Let's listen to what he had to say yesterday in respect of this.
We require about $700 million worth of liquid fuel in order to fill the fuel deficit, because our gas today is inadequate to meet our fuel requirements. Consequently, Cabinet has approved a raft of measures aimed at tackling the situation in the medium, long, and even in the short term. Cabinet has approved that in partnership and in conjunction with the Finance Ministry, we take immediate steps to construct a second gas processing plant. This gas processing plant would augment the shortfall and increase supply security. Let me put on record that we are not shedding load. And so the demand by the minority and some people that we publish a load shedding timetable is mute. When you are not shedding load, there will be no need to publish a load shedding timetable. In fact, as we speak, we are exporting about 300 megawatts of power outside Ghana to Burkina Faso, to Benin, and to other neighboring countries. And so when you have enough and you are exporting power, obviously there will be no need to publish load shedding timetable.
All right, so that's John Jinapor. He also talked about ECG, debt, etc. in a longer version of that, which we may bring to you later. But ECG, energy sector key, we've seen some power challenges here and there. He says it is not doomsday. And doomsday, as we know it, is when there's a generational shortfall. He said there's nothing like that, so this may be localized, all of that. We may see that later. I mean, it's if it's not, we will know. If it is, we will know. So just a matter of time. Prof Esumi, how crucial is the energy sector issues to the overall health of the economy?
Very crucial. I think all this agro-processing we're talking about, the industrialization we're talking about, there's been discussions about doing more, even processing some of our natural resources and other minerals. We need electricity and we need energy. I think, in some sense, some of the energy conversation, in some sense, there's too much focus on a particular aspect. We have to think more broadly about meeting the energy needs of all Ghanaians. There's been discussions about moving to renewable energy, which is important, but I think that strategy should be, what about the people who live in rural areas? What are we doing with their source of energy? But I think because of the debt that the energy sector has been accumulating, the debt that is clearly not sustainable. I think that's why it's always become, if you like, one of the whipping boys in terms of SOEs. So, I mentioned earlier on that during the discussion, during the forum, the dialogue, I somehow spent some time in the discussion on the energy, and I I was quite encouraged by the depth of knowledge of people who were having the discussion, their understanding of the sources of the debt for the various, companies that operate there. I think having had the discussion, what we want to see is a more comprehensive strategy for addressing the energy sector, both the debt as well as ensuring that the production and distribution of electricity is more reliable. Now, there are problems from many sectors. I think there are problems of not being able to recover. There are problems with distribution and the losses that they appear to be running. So as we speak, it appears that every year there are shortfalls in terms of the ability of ECG to recover. And that is piling up. So I think finding more sustainable ways of dealing with that is important. One important aspect of the discussion that I had was about improving the management and governance of ECG. I think that's a big part, because there are procurement issues, there are losses that are obviously not, losses that are people's investment, if I should say. People have invested in creating inefficiencies in the system. I think, and then there's been discussions about private sector participation. I think given our history, with our ability to, when we put the ability of our regulators to perform their function, I think it's very important that any discussion about private sector participation should ensure that we are not just handing out a very important national asset for a private sector to come and make money of it without making the necessary investment to fix the fundamental problems. So I think that's, but outside of that, it's good for the government now they've told us all the problems. We want to see a long-term strategy, a strategy that is believable, with clear timelines, that we know that if we follow it, ultimately we will solve our energy sector problems once and for all.
I see. Let's speak to Mr. Nsiah, Benjamin Nsiah, who is an energy sector expert and is an energy analyst and executive director for the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. He joins us on Zoom for his views on this. He's a sector person. So, hello, good morning. Sir, welcome to the big issue. I guess you followed the discussion on the energy at the National Economic Dialogue, and of course what the minister came to or told us yesterday at that brief press conference he addressed. What are your thoughts generally, sir? And hello, Mr. Nsiah. If you can unmute, that would be great. Yes, followed the discussion on the... Yes. All right, I think we're having some challenge with Mr. Nsiah's connection. We will sort that out and hear him speak on this. Franklin, are you there? Hello, Franklin?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
So yes, initially I wanted to deal with how receptive the system, the organizers were to all the things you presented. So quickly do that for me, and also tell me your thinking around the energy sector, how we can deal with the problems, huge problems we have there. Okay, so
there's a final report that should come out. We spoke, and so the final, it is going to be put in the, should I call it the final report? So those who matter actually have heard it, and they're including the final report. So that's the highest level of acceptability, for lack of a better word, right? But on this, on the ECG method, I've been wondering, and again, you see, this is where I suspect we should really consider the approach we are adopting. I don't think the problem has always been about the, should I call it management, changing management here and there. I think it's just the insidious nature of our policies. It's a cash cow. That entity is just a big cash cow. And I suspect that the politicians know very well that they can game whoever they put there, they can still game the person. But basically toy with the person until the person gives up. I mean, I don't, typical case of Dubik, even before Dubik, right? The last NDC administration, one of my de facto chairman of the, one of my board members was actually chairman of the ECG. And he was always lamenting. Well, there's this entity he's board chairman of. Every day, people are cooking all kinds of deals, and there are so much interference. He doesn't even understand. The last reason why he resigned was that they were going to procure cables, and this guy is a cables guy. They are going to procure ECG wanted to procure cables to the tune of almost $1 billion Ghana cedis at the time. And I said, look, what I've seen, the amount of the cables you want to procure would not even go beyond 500 million. So, where from this 1 billion? Well, as you know, the rest is history. Fought, eventually had to resign. I think the challenge has always been the appointing authority. I think they interfere too much in the work of ECB. And again, people decide to do whatever they want. Look, when we tried this, how do you call it? You remember we tried this private sector participation not long ago, PDS, right? I think PDS somehow, people have forgotten. I mean, we criticized the process leading to the PDS debacle. We were never really bothered about what PDS had done. Because PDS, incidentally, if you look at the data, PDS actually did quite well. I mean, if you look at the relatively short period they were in, they did well. It was the fact that some people in government wanted to chop some of the share. They wanted to chop some of the money. They didn't even understand themselves. They were infighting here and there. And it ultimately led to something they call an insurance guarantee. Very, very minute. I don't think those things could have been handled properly. Because of that, that did not happen. All of a sudden, we just jammed the entire process up. But if you look at the PDS record, the period within which they worked, if you compare it with what transpired after that, it's like day and night. So I would propose to the Minister of Energy today that yes, they made PDS a political issue because of the way it was handled, but the PDS itself really did quite some good. And if he's considering going back to private sector participation, he should look at the data that was presented, the PDS worked on, and compare. And that should be the basis for any comparison. And if they could even invite PDS back. I don't think there's any problem like that. There wouldn't be any problem. They should look again at the data that we have right now and then advise themselves. Because this whole thing where we do change of government, then somebody has a sole pet project they want to push, it's ridiculous and it's really destroying the country. Look, first of all, I do not believe that anybody appointed by the president would have the free hand to do this. It's not going to happen. It won't happen today, it won't happen tomorrow. As long as the political system which operates exists, I don't think it will happen. So I would think that the private sector participation should be the key, but don't just start everything afresh. Go back to PDS, look at the data they presented at the time, and compare with what currently exists. I'm so overwhelmed. Look, the last time I saw ECG's books, I was privileged. I was given a full PowerPoint presentation by one of the accounting firms concerning ECG and privileged information. I realized that no, anybody who wants to really cause change must be resolute. Otherwise, the center will be toying with you, people will be backbiting you before I realize you're just gone. The last guy who was there before the current, the new administration, left like that. After, we had conversations. Said, look, the only reason why he will leave is when the appointee eventually tells him to do something that he doesn't want to do. Essentially, that's what happened. I think we need to change that course. This whole idea that if we change some management, new people will come, they'll be nice. Please, of all the SOEs, I don't know which one has angels, but I also don't know which ones really has done so well because we changed management and then left them alone. It's the leaving alone that doesn't really happen, and it's sad that I think we should we should look into that matter carefully and be careful when we are asking for another round of privatization without looking back at what had happened with the previous one. So I call on the minister, please take a critical look at the PDS data. The PDS became problematic because of a corruption-related matter, but it was not really about the PDS patterns. I don't think that was the problem. PDS delivered its work properly, as I know the data I have seen it, and they were really on course to do some good work. So I would urge the minister to exercise a lot of caution, go back to that table and ask himself if indeed they can achieve something like that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Franklin. Prof. Khalid. So the energy sector, people say if the government will fail, the energy sector will be one of those that will make the government fail. I see John Jinapor quite on top of his brief. He appears to be saying the right things, perhaps doing the right things as well. What else do we need to do to ensure that this sector, is up and running? We are not crippled by the huge debt we have in the sector. What was the plan really?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on, and as you see, you could say the minister is on top of his brief as energy minister. When we took over office, one of the eminent issues we're faced with is an imminent power crisis. And you see how the president rallied behind and ensured that we didn't plunge the country into darkness. Here we are again. I mean, the minister spelled out as one of the long-term solutions, as you would see, that we do need another gas processing plant. As you realize, Etuabo is about the main plant already existing. But for the energy transition purposes in and of itself, how clean gas is when it comes to sustainability and climate issues is a big issue. So that has been on the radar. So a lot has been done in the background. But again, that tells you the importance of the economic dialogue that just ended. Because if they were not priority issues, they would not be discussed in that area. Because you realize, as I said, the Structural Reform Committee was meant to look at structural reforms, and they just narrowed down to Cocoa Board and ECG, which tells you that this is a government that is prioritizing energy. Remember, in 2016, when the country was faced with imminent energy crisis, right? It was one of the nemesis of the government at the time. Much as the government did very well, the people thought otherwise. But in hindsight, they realized the investments the government even, that you talk about the Amari plants, among other issues that has been inherited by the last government or the administration that just left. So there have been several investments that the John Mahama administration has put in. And if you look at real, tangible investments as far as energy is concerned, the Etuabo gas plant is a classic emblem of Emil's Mahama legacy in and of itself. So you'd see the kind of focus it has always been, and the investments previous and current NDC governments have always made towards energy. Energy is key, is critical, right? We have inherited a sector, and as you look at our energy component, we still have energy poverty across the value chain. How to eliminate all of this, it's something government is looking into, right? And the sort of subsidy, because people talk about, okay, well, there's a lot of debt. What we look at that we don't probably understand is that we say, okay, 2 million people owe ECG. Now, to go after these 2 million people to pay this debt, right? Maybe 1.5, I'm just giving ballpark figures. 1.5 of them are just using onion bulbs, among other issues, and are classified among the energy poor. So if you were to spend a huge amount or colossal amount of money, debt recovery has a cost element to it. To go after them, when you may, let's say you're able to have even a 90-95% recovery, would that be commensurate of the amount spent into that? But you also realize that across the value chain, in power transmission, a lot of losses happen, among other issues. How are we able to harness this? Again, this is something government is looking into. But all of this requires some level of, heavy ticket government expenditure to put into it to have the sustainability. And we as a government have always had that history of biting the bullet and actually go into real long-term investments, such that a government could even come in and say we have excess capacity. But that was what we did when we had Doomsaw in 2016, right? The president at the time, who is the current president, President John Dramani Mahama, went all out to invest in the energy sector, which is why, again, we had criticisms of moving the Amari plant to Kumasi at such a colossal cost. We're asking, why do we have to? when we have real energy issues. Imagine these millions of dollars that were spent. Could we have put it into real investments at ECG to see what could it not have defrayed some, debt, as it may? Can we, right, or one of the propositions I make is that can we have a current procurement audit of ECG? Because everyone keeps talking about procurement issues. It may not be the case. They may just be anecdotes. But if we have a real, tangible procurement audit of ECG and come out to say, okay, well, I hear Franklin talk about cables that were probably being procured, among other issues. Then we come to realize that, okay, there are transformers lying in the warehouse that have not been used. There are cables lying in the warehouse that has not been, or in the stores that have not been used, that are not needed. That's where we can have a real conversation. Until then, all of these are anecdotes that we have from either staff of ECG or non-staff. They could be, the real truth. They could not be, which is why I say calling for a procurement audit in and of itself will put us in a certain strategic position to know what kind of strategic investment we will put. We all independent power providers. We all look at the debt and the amount of money coming in. If ECG was left on its own to receive these amounts and to pay off these debts, right, would it stand or would it be a going concern? That's a fundamental question. And for a minister to be on top of his brief and trying to actually achieve all of this, he really deserves a pat at the back, because he has actually gone into a sector that is critical. That's the fulcrum of the economy. It is a pivot of the economy. The least shake in the energy sector, you know what's going to happen. We have cold stores, we have, all these small-scale industries that are struggling to come up with an overheated economy that we inherited and are trying to cool off. And to cool this economy off, energy is critical.
I see.
Right. So key steps are being made. And one of the long-term measures he's proposing is another gas processing plant. And we have the infrastructural capacity. We have the resource capacity, because, the Sankofa field, among other issues, are still existent, and we have abundance of gas resources.
But
again, for strategic purpose.
Being on top, the energy minister being on top of the brief here. Yeah. Beginning times, we'll be happy with that. But as time goes on, he is being on the brief must show in real solutions. For example, if Doomsor comes back, people think there's some load rationing or shedding. If it stays there on his brief and these things are happening, people will not be kind to him.
No, the point is, when you say someone is on top of his brief, it means that he's doing the right stuff. Remember, we are talking about a month plus old government. We're not talking about a year, 2 plus old government. Right. Even appointments are still being made to critical sectors of the economy, much as they've been done with some speed. But, we have ECG now, we have an acting CEO, we have an acting CEO at VRA, which are, critical sectors of the economy. I've always labeled VRA, ECG as even national security assets, if you ask me, given the pivotal role they play as far as the economy is concerned, as far as energy transmission is concerned, as far as energy stability is concerned, and as far as ending energy poverty is concerned. So these are key critical national security assets. So if we say a minister is on top of his brief, right, he is coming to the fore, inheriting from a previous government the state of this. And this is a debt, not just a debt, a mountainous debt that is inherited. How to defray it off is what he's looking into. And this will not take just a day or two, right? And you'd see that at every critical point in time, he's trying to expose everyone to understand what the real issues are and what government is doing. Are we in Doomsor? No, we're not in Doomsor, are we?
But there are power outages around, and people have concerns.
Sporadic power outages, we would, yes, sporadic, yes, right? But that is what he's working across. And we're humble enough to admit that we can have sporadic outages. But are we plunged in a state where it was before, or to be labeled under the classification of the local terminology?
To give us a timetable.
But when we ask them for a timetable, we had an entire energy minister who was not on top of his brief coming out to tell us that he wouldn't give a timetable.
And today that's how come he knew that he didn't need
a timetable. Is that what you want to say, Selorm?
You didn't need a timetable.
Right. So I think the energy minister, the Honourable Dr. John Jinapor, deserves commendation, and we ought to all support him to succeed.
Great. So Honourable Foko, you've heard the energy minister speak. He's someone in Parliament, your colleague in Parliament. People think he knows his onions, etc. Are you impressed with the things he's been saying, about resolving the problems in the energy sector? Energy sector has been a problem, for the past number of years. Have you been impressed with the solutions he appears to be putting on the table?
Yeah, thank you, Selorm. I won't talk about the energy sector without saying thank you to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for keeping the lights on, because he kept the lights on. So if you have come in to succeed him, I think the expectation is that you keep the lights on as you came to meet it. But what we're seeing now, hearing now, is presentations on complaints. That is why we've termed all these lamentations, because the lights were on when you came. So why all of a sudden these lamentations about so-called issues here and there and that sort of thing? The lights were on. Keep it on as you came to meet it. As simply as that. And
was the lights on?
I'm coming, I'm making my submission. And I thank Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for keeping the lights on. And the other issue is, if we say there is no need for a timetable, there's no doomsday, why do we see the lights off? Because the lights go off, and people in this country know. You see, lights is not one of those things that you can hide, that you need to go and do research to know whether it's been off or not. Especially when you are flying, when you're on a flight, and you get to a time the lights are off. I mean, it's so obvious. In the evening, you look down, everything is off. So you don't have to do a research to know the lights have been off. It's been off. Fix it. You came to meet it on. But the issue of electricity generation and distribution and all that, we know that. I mean, there are issues. That have been around. Yes, I won't say it's been perfect. That is a fact. Wastage is a big issue. Wastage is a big issue. ECG is just at the retail end, it's at the distribution end. So if he receives and is able to distribute and collect back, there should be no issue. And like you rightfully said at the opening of this session on energy, it's not as if there's so much of debtors to be collected. It's not as if there's so much that is owed in terms of electricity bills. It's wasted. Electricity that has been supplied that you don't even have valid receipts to say that these are debts or debts that I have to collect. So it's gone into waste. And that is where the issue is. How do we address it? There's been this preemption of talks on increasing the bills and all that. And you ask yourself, to what extent? To what extent would the few people that are, probably paying these be able to absorb, and all that? But you see, you think about it in a strategic way, and you ask yourself, how do we resolve this? And Selorm, I think if you've been following my presentations in Parliament, I made a submission about 3 weeks ago on energy transition. And the point I made was that we should be looking at transitioning into solar. And this is also a point that has been drummed home by our ex-Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He has been drumming this seriously, that as a country, we need to be moving towards solar. Look, the new minister is talking about building a new plant. That would depend on fossil fuel, importing natural gas to come and power these plants. Think about it. Building a plant depending on fossil fuel, which is imported to power this plant. We have.
If we build a gas plant, we get that from the field, the mine. The oil field, the gas field.
I get it, but we import gas, don't we?
Yeah, we import gas and gas, West African gas.
So that's what I'm talking about.
But what it means is, if this is constructed, we may reduce our dependence on these imported gas. They are all looking at cheap energy.
Whatever the case is, we're going to depend on fossil fuel, which is expensive, which has, negative impacts on the environment and so on and so forth. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been putting this across, that we should be transitioning. And I put this across as well, in Parliament, that we should be
Yes,
we should be transitioning.
Yes, but gas is clean.
It's cleaner, really.
That is fundamental.
Let me make my submission.
But it is less cleaner than solar or renewable.
Let me make my submission.
Yes, let's go ahead. Yeah.
Solar, countries have been successful with it. Okay, when you go solar, what is your fuel? Your fuel is sun's energy. It's free. The only little challenge there is the initial setup costs.
Which is
and
huge.
the countries that have been successful, you ask yourself, how have they been successful? And we have countries that are similar to us. Not only the so-called advanced countries. There's been, countries that have been successful, similar to us. And it has to be started from somewhere. So, you see, we have to think and rethink around this.
But that's a more long-term
it's not just long-term. Look, countries that have been successful, they've been able to entice, companies to come into their country to produce these solar panels locally. It becomes cheaper to produce these batteries and inverters locally. In Ghana here now, we mine lithium. So producing batteries here, whilst we mine lithium, should be cheaper. Okay, so if we look into this, in a strategic way, and we start now, ask yourself, is it 2 years, is it 3 years, that will turn around? Okay, putting solar panels at rooftops and on balconies and so on, this is what has taken some countries forward in terms of transitioning. And you break even so quickly after the initial investment cost. And this could be promoted across the country easily. Fossil fuel, I tell you, never gets cheaper, never gets cleaner, and it's not easy for any country that is dependent on fossil fuel. It is not easy. So we need to have a deeper thought on this discussion in the long term.
The energy minister in his press briefing talked about EV charging stations to be set up and all of that, talking about the renewable energy account or something. Clearly, of course, he's minister also for green transitions. So I'm sure he is looking at that as well. Only that people think it may be a bit more medium to long term than fixing the short term need. So, for example, in January, there was a need to quickly deal with the situation. They had to quickly get diesel to fix that. That wasn't the time to go deal with solar panels and all of that. So everybody agrees, I think, that is the way to go. But maybe we need to start the investment now. And I'm sure that's where the discussion really should be.
I don't doubt that urgent issues have to be addressed. But if you are talking about bringing in, let's say, a second gas plant and all that, how long would that take us to get it into place and get it operational? Okay, so if I'm talking about energy transitioning, compare the two. How long it will take us to bring this to fruition, go in solar and go in another gas plant. Have we compared the two? Have we done the cost-benefit analysis vis-a-vis the environmental benefits that we get? Okay, and I've said that we have countries that are similar to our situation. We're not just talking about, far advanced countries that are similar to us, having been successful with this solar program. And you go around and you see homes, ordinary homes with solar panels at a rooftop, producing electricity to support the homes. And like I was saying, the initial cost to install solar systems, if you look at the lifespan of these systems, you break even so easily, such a way that the rest will be benefits. And there are companies, even in Ghana here, there are some of those companies around, but it's just a few for now, and we need to encourage them by giving them some incentives for others to also come in. They will come in, set up this solar system for you to produce electricity to your home, and they will give you the assurance that whatever you would have paid to, let's say, the national grid, they are ready to give you a discount of, let's say, 25%. There are companies around. And after a while, it turns over to you. So these are some of the mechanisms that we should be looking at. And this could be rolled out across the country. And this is not rocket science.
Very well.
It could be done easily.
Great. I'm going to take a break.
But Selorm, solar is not as simplistic as sometimes we make it look. Right? The feasibility study is sometimes to go into when we are going to say we're going even solar, right? Probably say we're going 100 megawatts of solar. Feasibility studies to actually make it viable in a resource. Just having the sun is not enough. Where to position it and where panels is to be among all of these, meeting environmental needs among other issues. It takes a long period of time. So it's not clear justification to say that maybe a gas processing plant might be longer than putting up a solar panel, because we're talking about big investments here. That said, we're still talking about clean energy and a green transition. You've got to burn carbons to have a solar panel built, right?
Very well.
You've got to, I'm just trying to bring the mix that when we talk about clean energy, we're just talking about absolute
How do you burn carbon to get solar panel?
So how do you build a solar panel without burning carbon? Solar panels, we're talking about the
processing
of the panels. Yes. Nothing happens. They're all part of the energy mix.
But that's
I'm coming in. And to have, whether negligible or not, right? But to have a solar panel to power, right, the entirety of City FM, we're probably talking about to have the entire roof. Right?
And what's
Bin
the
Laden
problem
with
that?
I'm not saying we are just, we are provoking a conversation.
Sure.
I'm not saying that is what it is, right? Yeah, we've got 15-year span, we've got 25-year span. I'm just erecting these arguments to say that we bring them into a context.
I need to go.
Right. in what is determined as green and where to go as far as long-term issues are concerned.
Great.
Yeah, but solar is a big thing that we are looking into as well as part of the energy mix.
The previous administration and even this one both recognize the need
the solar,
for the transition.
Yes. And which is why the ministry is called Energy and Green Transition.
also brought in some
which is why it's labeled Green Transition, which is an embrace or a national embrace of the transition in and of itself.
I think a short break. When we return, we'll look at Galamsey. Galamsey also featured in the National Economic Dialogue and all of that. Arocha has been making some demands. We'll look at all of that in the context of the National Economic Dialogue and see cocoa. We talked about cocoa board and all of that. Galamsey affects the yield. We'll see how we'll get into that. This is a big issue, don't go away.
People of Bandi, General Sakamandi's let the world know. Mansa Kakumbuza! Sundiata! For so long, Sumaguru thought himself invincible. But my people, today we have the key to break his barrier.
This year, something magical is happening. A celebration of tradition, flavor, and community. Welcome to the Backyard Village Food Festival 2025.
Taste the heart of your heritage with mouth-watering dishes from across the country like Ademe with Akple, Tozafi with Ayoyo soup, Kokonte, Apopranta, Rare Quine, and many more. From rich spices to sweet treats, it's a journey for your senses. We're taking you back to your village.
Oh yes, let's recreate our age-old recipes.
But it's not just about food, you know. We're celebrating culture, connecting with family, and making memories that last a lifetime.
This March, let's come together and discover discover the flavors that make us who we are. The date is 29th and 30th of March 2025. The venue, Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and the time is 10 a.m. through till 6 p.m. each day.
The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025, where food, fun, and tradition meet. See you there.
Interested vendors should call 0558 973 973 or 0205 973 973 to register. The Back to Your Village Food Festival 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV with support from 97.3 City FM and is proudly sponsored by Gino.
You're welcome to the big issue. We're looking at Galamsey now. The National Economic Dialogue has some portions or some parts. The communique had a few things to say about Galamsey. But in the meantime, Arocha, which is a conservation NGO in collaboration with other NGOs, is demanding the removal of key government officials for their alleged failure to combat illegal mining. At the press conference in Accra last Friday or yesterday, the group called for the immediate dismissal and replacement of the Eastern South Police Commander and the Divisional Police Commander for Chebi. So in this report, my colleague Samola Kom was at the press conference and he put this together.
The fight against illegal mining, or Galamsey, has sparked intense nationwide discussions due to its devastating impact on the environment. At a press conference in Accra, Deputy National Director of Arocha Ghana, Darrell Bosu, called for urgent reforms to Ghana's mining and environmental regulatory framework. He emphasized the need to repeal LI 2462, a legislative instrument that has allegedly enabled illegal mining within forest reserves and undermining conservation efforts and endangering local communities' health.
Target and assault on forest reserve, undermining decades of conservation and sustainable management of forests in Ghana. Previous and past governments agree that LI 2462 is counterproductive to our sustainable development and must be revoked. There is therefore no reason why this law continues to exist in our statute books. LI 2462 must be revoked with immediate effect, and all mining concessions issued for forest reserves in Ghana revoked as well.
Furthermore, Arocha Ghana accused some police officers of failing to tackle illegal mining in their jurisdictions, resulting in severe water pollution and the destruction of forest reserves. As a result, they are calling for the immediate removal of Eastern South Police Commander DCOP George Boedi Bosman, Divisional Police Commander of Chebi ACP Reynolds Sam.
The failure to enforce effectively laws against illegal mining in parts of the eastern region is a clear indication of poor leadership and complacency by both the Divisional and Eastern South Command, all located at Chebi in the eastern region of Ghana. We are therefore calling for a more proactive law enforcement and effective leadership by asking for the replacement of the Eastern South Police Commander DCOP George Boedi Bosman and ACP Reynolds Sam, Divisional Police Commander, for their inability to curb illegal mining activities in the region.
The group also demanded the removal of the CEO of the Minerals Commission, insisting that no leadership is needed to take decisive action against illegal mining.
The current leadership of the Minerals Commission has failed to ensure responsible mining practices that safeguard social and environmental protection across the country. We call on the government to, as a matter of urgency, replace the executive director of the Minerals Commission with a visionary leader who would usher in a new era of...
You're welcome back. So that was a report by my colleague Samalakom, who attended our press conference by Arocha, where they asked for the immediate replacement, not dismissal, replacement of the Eastern South Police Commander and the Divisional Police Commander Chebi. Darrell is here, and good to have him. Darrell, welcome to the program. I thought the Galamsey fight, or I thought the fight or the situation had improved.
Oh, really?
Only to hear that it's not at all. What's the situation on the ground really now?
Good morning to you. Yes. And also good morning to panelists also. And I think we will be lying to ourselves if we think that the fight against Galamsey has gotten better or the issues on the ground has improved. It's actually rather escalating. And we being on the ground, we realize that, between the period of the transition, there was also quite a lot of transition that went on with miners on the ground. We saw some people who are connected to the party in power also switching, substituting with the old administration party faithful. So I think this is what we saw on the ground. And that's how come we saw quite a number of some brutal takeovers and seizures of mining sites and concessions. So it's not gotten better. And even now, I think the fear is that it's even going to get worse. Most areas have been exploited for the minerals. These new administration, the people following them would also want new areas to mine. And so we should expect that other areas that we thought were protected would definitely come under attack because people want new areas to mine. And if you were listening yesterday, there are concerns that the Galamsey is really extending gradually towards the Bono area, possible threats to the Bui Hydro Dam and all of that. So it's really gotten worse. And we have also seen that most of these mining communities, there is becoming and developing an issue of increasing drug use by the miners. And then it has always been the case, but we see more and more the influx of foreigners, Togo, Burkina Faso, and all of that in this landscape right now. And the fact is that we don't also see a commensurate action by the state agencies, practically within a period from December 7th, during the election period, right up to, even now, we don't really see. We have only recently heard and seen the government through the Honorable Minister for Lands and also His Excellency the President making certain statements and also taking some actions on the ground. But between December 7 right up to the swearing of the President, a lot happened. And I don't think that we can say it's gotten better. It's actually getting worse. And certain rivers, for example, the Densu River, which we have for a long time been working with communities to protect, is now very polluted. So you travel from Chebi, get to Selorm, and I'm sure we'll start seeing that the Wija Reservoir will start changing color very, very soon, if it is not, because it's quite a huge reservoir, so it will take time for the pollution to really take effect. But it is all now becoming a very big issue for us now. So it's not gotten better, it's rather increasing, and I think this is where we need to be worried very much.
Well, I see the minister, the sector minister, Iman Lamakofibu, are going around, issuing directives, appearing to be stern in the way he talks, etc. I thought that was a certain strategy. What do you glean from his approach so far?
I think it's good to see that the Honorable Minister is on the ground, he's engaging, and I think that is a good pusher. But I have to say that the problems on the ground are much more than we are seeing actions to deal with them. So, you heard that about 44 forest reserves. We knew this. 44 forest reserves are severely impacted by Galamsey. There was also the report that out of that, about 9 of them, they are really having difficulty. Even the Forestry Commission, who have been managing the forest reserves, are having difficulty and having access to really manage this forest as it should. So it tells you that the problem is really big. And so far, the visits to the field and all of that, it will help, but it's not going to deal with the problem. I think there needs to be an across-board reform with a lot of the need to change people in places. We need to reform even the licensing regime. The government promised that when they come into office, they're going to do an audit of mining concessions and all of that. That needs to be done. And as part of the 120-day social contract with Ghanaians, they also talk about banning illegal mining in forest reserves and all of that. And so with that, we are looking at LI 2462, which practically permits mining in forest reserves. These things have not been done. And I think that we also lost a lot of leverage between the time when it was announced, the contending presidential candidate announced that His Excellency John Mahama, he concedes to His Excellency John Mahama. There was a gap. And there was nothing said, and a lot of things happened. So within that period, we didn't really exert our leadership. So people have taken positions in several places. Now the minister is coming with a very good intention, but I think that there's more he needs to do if he really wants to take a good control of what is happening on the ground. So it is good to see, but not enough for now.
I see. So Khalid, we said we were going to deal with Galamsey. What's the approach from what the person on the ground is saying? The situation hasn't improved. It's even getting worse. Very soon we'll see the wager changing color. That will be catastrophic. What is the plan?
I'm going to speak as an academic, given that I've published extensively in this area. One of the central things that run across when you do research into Galamsey, or for that matter, mining or small-scale mining, illegal mining, and what have you, and social issues, is poverty. Right, so it's more of a poverty issue than any other thing, and it has to do, and for that matter, it transcends to security implications as well. Now, when you look at the entire mining value chain and what ought to be done or not to be done, you'd realize that the laws of the country permits that, mining or small-scale mining is a sole preserve of citizens. And this was done at the back of the fact that they needed to allow, because post the Bretton Woods interventions, where we had liberalization of state-owned mines, and for that matter, their privatization, which went into big multinationals, you had the nationals being crowded out of that space. So to bring them back into the value chain, this was allowed. But fast forward, you still realize that mining is a very capital-intensive issue or business. So you would find that sometimes the indigents do not even have the capacity to go into mining, so they may probably have these licenses and may have someone foreign backing them to do all of these things. That said, you would still realize that in most mining communities where there are multinational presence, you take Obuasi, for example, which you still see endemic poverty among other issues when you look at statistical data, right? It stems from the fact that when we talk about livelihood issues for miners or community members, it is quite interesting. Because if you pick up a report from a multinational mining firm and they're telling you that the community livelihood issue is grass cutter rearing, then you ask yourself, how sustainable is grass cutter rearing? You may probably have a big farm that could, but in the scales at which it's happening, I'm not trying to downplay that, compared to someone who risks to say, okay, well, I'm going to do small-scale mining. And, it may probably take them months and years, but I understand, I haven't done the process before. When they hit, which is the term, it's colossal. So they may begin to take these risks. But can we say that what knowledge transfer, what skills transfer have multinationals actually brought to bear on these communities? Right. When we say alternative livelihood measures, what sustainable measures are we giving them? I want to see a national program where we say we are taking old Galamsey, Galamsey, people who are involved in Galamsey, and we're putting them into X skill development program to allow them to have sustainable measures, and they become examples of what it is. That may not curb the problem, right? As I said, I'm speaking from a research perspective and from what I have seen on the ground. That may not curb the problem, but a lot more. But the fundamental question to ask is, where are the pinstripe mafia? I call them pinstripe mafia because they have the deep pockets. The guy at the Galamsey site is probably the 10th in the chain of things. His boss is probably sitting in London or in America, somewhere, or New York, right, got an intermediary in Accra who is a Galamsey kingpin, also disseminate the money down to maybe a local place in Wasa or wherever it is. And there's also another local person until you find the guy with his feet and hands in the mud. So it's quite difficult if we go after those guys. That guy there probably does not even know the real financier.
Now you're an appointee, right?
Yes.
So how do we get to those guys?
Yeah, but that is where I am coming out. I'm an appointee and a researcher at the same time, so I need to marry the two. You really want to put me on the political tangent?
Because it was a political issue.
Yeah, it is, which I admit.
Prior to 2024 elections, it's huge.
Which I agree.
And we called for state of emergency and all of that.
Yes, which I agree. I mean, what have we not had? We've had Operation Galam Stop, we've had Operation whatever, and I always say even the amounts of monies we spent in all of these Operation Galam stuff and what have you, is it commensurate of the results that have been yielded? That is a fundamental question to ask, right? I mean, steps have been made. I think the Mines Minister, Lands and Natural Resources, held a small-scale conference recently. I don't know if your organization...
That was for the MPs.
For the MPs, okay, yeah. So, well, they are lawmakers, and I hope that in time past it's going to be trickled down to people like you to come on board to see how we can... It's hydra-headed, and it's getting more complicated than ever before. So, well, as I said, it's a livelihood issue. There's an economic dimension to it. There's a national security dimension to it. So, to tackle this, you really need to come on heads on from a multifaceted perspective.
Right. Prior to the last election,
we've had a soldier that has lost his life via this, which
there was LI 2462, the LI 2462 that was to be repealed. The minister, Attorney General at the time, or the Mines Minister, went to Parliament with a document, but for some reason I'm not sure it matured. That was what we had.
I don't think it ever got to Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm looking at him. I'm surprised.
That was the information we got.
No, if indeed got to Parliament, we would have seen the debates.
Yes, but it had to mature. It had to take 21 days to mature. That was when Parliament went on the recess. The four MPs, whether they advocated their seat and all of that. Parliament was really.
I will be excited to see such deliberations.
So we're expecting that. Given that background and all the things we saw prior to the election, one of the first things we expected the minister to do, now that he is around, is to go to Parliament with this.
No, but you know, going to Parliament is just not waking up and going. You go through a process.
No, but the document isn't prepared already.
For all you know.
saw it.
No, you saw it, but that does not. What is the component of that document that you think was?
You know, Khalid, government wanted to do the economic dialogue.
Yes.
They put documents together. They did
but that's not. Government didn't need Parliament's approval.
No, this is what I'm saying.
An economic dialogue.
What I'm saying, you don't need Parliament to do anything. Just go and put it there. It will mature. That's just what it is.
Oh no,
it's an ally.
Selorm.
It's an ally. You don't need to do anything. You don't need a debate.
No, Selorm. It's not about a debate.
It will just mature.
He needs engagements with people like him.
Not necessarily.
No, you do. To have a real input.
I think the issue has to do with what is the nature of the law that needs repealed. And this law I'm just saying to actually buttress the point that you are making. You see, the fact is that this is an ally, and just like you said,
allowing us to mine in foreign reserves and all of that.
Lay it in Parliament, and you require 21 days to mature.
So that's what I'm saying. There's a process that goes through.
And
this is something we need to put at the doorsteps of the lands and natural. For all you know, there's processes going on.
Yeah, but we're expecting
and which is why for all you know, for all you know, the speed. That's what I'm coming in. But if he had organized a forum with Parliament, the same parliamentarians that are going to support such a bill, it tells you that it could have been in motion in light of that. Did you follow that?
No, it will just mature.
No, but did you follow that?
We followed it. In fact, there was a statement released. That the finance, it was one of the prerequisites for Labour calling off that strike, if you recall, that nationwide strike. So it was done. But it was unfortunate it couldn't mature because of the suspension and
can we give the minister some space
and say that
and we also know it's an agent matter.
So we expect him to attach some seriousness.
I think that he has attached seriousness to it, and the fact stems from the fact that he's already engaged in Parliament. Parliamentarians, the very people that are to make this decision on illegal mining.
So then it's like what Foko said. He's buying time. Buying time for
I wouldn't call that buying time, right? Engaging stakeholders to get the right things to be done. It's never buying time, or should not be deemed as buying time.
Very well.
You are rather integrating the right policy measures. You don't want to pass a law today then in 5 years' time it becomes obsolete.
But if it deals with the needs of today,
right?
Yes. It saves our water bodies for 5 years.
Well, you may think,
whilst we think about what to do next.
You may think that is it, but how about if it can solve the needs in perpetuity or probably 100 years?
Very soon, Wager Dam. If Wager Dam gets polluted, then we are doomed.
So he's put measures in place. You've seen him on the ground as well, visiting all of these sites and engaging. So I think that the minister is not idle. He's engaging with the issues.
Thank you. I mean, I'm happy we have a third party here.
These guys have been at this for long. In fact, we've been at this for long.
At least a third party at this table. That's what I mean. At this table, to tell us something from a neutral perspective, And I'm really saddened to hear that the issue is getting worse or has gotten worse because of all that we heard prior to the elections and where it got to. So if post-elections in this period it has gotten worse, and the issues that we are seeing with, a forest guard who is working to protect these resources that we have, being arrested, and NDC party folks now preventing arrests and making a stance and all that, then it's quite an issue. That's something that was raised and got into that level, as if the world was coming to an end, and within this period has gotten out of hands. But Selorm, I think, in my view, we should be looking at one alternative livelihood to the people that get involved in this issue of small-scale mining, and ensure that they have alternative livelihood. If you have been to the field and you come across people who are directly involved, the people who go to the field to work, you realize that probably to them is waking up and going to work, going to, do something for a living. So you ask yourself, if there were alternative livelihood, alternate jobs for them, would they even wake up and have that sort of routine? The people that even own those swaths of lands, you ask yourself if there were alternative value to those lands, to the tune of what probably, if not even on the same scale, to some extent, there were some values that they could get out of the lands. Would they even go ahead to give it out, and so on and so forth? You think about it, if we had, swath of vegetation and a value was put on them. We've been discussing this about carbon trading and so on and so forth. If I were a chief in my area and I've got this land and there was this value that if it was kept, this is what you will get through the carbon trading. Probably people will be incentivized to even protect certain lands that are under their control. But if there's no value put on it and there's alternate, that is where then all sort of options come to play and that sort of thing. And the other thing is looking at, is it educating people or enforcing the law to ensure responsible mining? Responsible mining. Is there not a way that we can look at reclaiming land or degrading the land less in a way that it could easily regenerate? If you've been to some of the mining sites, and I've seen some that the lands have been reclaimed, seedlings for whatever planted to regenerate the land and so on and so forth. Could we look at responsible mining, even with those that have been licensed to mine? Could we look at some of these to ensure the land is reclaimed? Could we look at, we talk about mining off certain perimeter around river bodies? Could we look at those to ensure the water bodies are not polluted with cyanide, are not polluted with mercury? It was, raising the alarm about Wager Dam and so on. So if we go into educating people and also along the line, enforcing the law, probably we will have more of responsible mining. So it's a multifaceted approach that I think we could look to addressing this very tough issue. I wouldn't say it's so easy. It's something that we all need to put our minds to see how we address it. But once again, I am sad to hear that the issue has actually gotten worse from where, it was just before.
If there was a forum or a dialogue to solicit views or to get your buy-in, will it be something you would be happy, your side would be happy to participate in?
Selorm, this is our country, and we should all put our minds together to get it to the best that it can be. But if dialogues and forums are premised on blame game and so on and so forth, then it's like right from the beginning, it's difficult to even get involved. If you're starting and you're picking and choosing where you think somebody was on a slippery slope and whatever, then it makes it difficult. But if it's called upon with a good heart and with a sense of unity to address an issue, I believe it shouldn't be far-fetched for all of us to sit around the table and look at ways of resolving an issue as big as this, and an issue that is confronting all of us. And I don't think we have any ambiguity that is an issue that has to be addressed in the interest of the nation.
Very well. Franklin, I am sad that the situation, according to Arocha, is not improving. The minister's been going around. You think that's the right thing, or you think you expect more from him? Should he have done more? Could he have done more, given the circumstances of his taking office? Or you think that it's just the way it is? Franklin, if you're hearing me, I'm asking whether you are impressed with the pace of work so far. Arocha is saying it's deteriorating. Prior to the election, we're all in red, stop Galamsey now, etc., etc. Only to hear that the situation is worsening. That is so hard to take. How should we approach this? The LR has still not been repealed. We are still around. Nothing much is happening.
It's disheartening listening to my good friend Arocha. I really do not think we should be experiencing these things right now. I am totally appalled that the issue of Galamsey. We were promised that there's going to be immediate ban on the mining in the forest areas. But I've seen a few swoops which may be useful. But seriously speaking, I'm a bit worried that we may not be able to basically attain what we want to. I think the other gentleman who has also is speaking disappointingly, by the way, about this Erastus. And I think that the warning signs are all over, and we should really, really make sure we don't slack at all. I'm disappointed to learn that the issues have not changed at all. And indeed, have not surprised entirely, because, when they say that, when was it in the medieval times when people were being hung for capital punishment, people who were watching were actually pickpocketing at the same time. So I suspect that just the new kings have taken over, and we don't want that to happen at all. People are not just afraid because of the interventions we're making. I think we need to be a bit more swifter and a bit more, the word is not brutal, but I don't know. Frankly, we've seen it as an economic problem. We understand it as well, but I think maybe the community approach has also doesn't seem to be working. For me, I think we should deal with the matter. Once you are doing Galamsey in forested areas, I think you should just be found out and checked out. That's the only thing that can be done. I don't see why they should sympathize if we come and talk to you. No. And I think that the president has to put his foot on the ground. It's important we keep our rivers pristine, we keep our forests cover entirely out of reach of these plunderers.
I see. So what next do we do? We keep the advocacy. Will we organize a walk, demonstration like we saw before? What's the next step? What can we do to ensure that the new government knows that we are still red, our eyes are still red, we care about water bodies, we are not giving anybody any honeymoon in terms of healing the water bodies, etc. What can we do again?
Yes, I think the government is already indicating that they are committed to the process. I mean, you've heard a lot of very good statements from the Honorable Minister, Emmanuel Amaboa, and I must say that it's reassuring, but I think that is one side of the coin. You say a lot of good things, you want to see that there's real action, and that's what we didn't have in the last 8 years. Yes, there was a lot of big talk and a lot of promises. We didn't see them fulfilled. We spent a lot of resources, Operation Vanguard, Operation Halt, Galam Stop, all those things. I mean, we didn't see any outcomes. So as we really near the end of that administration, we really had very tough times. I think going forward, yes, there's a lot of good talk. I think we need to see this really translate into action. Now, the point on the livelihood aspect of it, which is a very important aspect of this discussion, it's good to be talking about livelihood and we getting miners some alternate livelihood. But I think that when it comes to dealing with Galamsey, we need to see these two issues as separate matters. These are people who are engaged in an illegality. Let's deal with the illegality first, and then we could be looking at the livelihood as well. Because the truth is, you can never give a miner a job that will give them commensurate income. It's not possible. So we need to see those two issues as different. I mean, just like you and I, we try to get into legitimate employment because you don't want to fall foul of the law. So you wouldn't engage in armed robbery, other issues of corruption, and all of that. You want to stay legitimate. There are legitimate jobs in this country. Illegal mining is not one of them. So we need to deal with it as it should. And then there's, of course, the need to also then look at the livelihood. This issue of livelihood is a systematic problem that has persisted for a long time. It starts from people having the ability to build career or even capacity, be it artisanal or whatever, at some technical level to be able to engage in a job. But we can't just allow certain group of people to say, we don't have a job, so let's go and plunder, destroy forests, and then displace other people. Let's not forget, for as long as these people are in the rivers, they are putting you and I at risk. Our water systems, provisioning systems are also going to be affected. Ghana Water Company is talking about excessive cost in treating water. It becomes an economic problem. The government will need to find more resources to address that condition. Now there are also issues with pollution of our water bodies and even of our food systems. That is connected to our health. Our health sector is also going to feel the punch of that. Who pays for it? It's going to be the government, it's going to be you and I, it's going to come through several ways of taxes and all of that. So for as long as these miners are in the pits, they are in our rivers, they are in our forest reserves, we are going to pay for it eventually. And that is where I think that we should not compromise with that. Because eventually, if we don't deal with it, we are going to experience the repercussions much, much later on. I would say, and I think this solution to Galamsey, we all know. The previous dialogues in 2021, we did over several dialogues. I think 16, yes. It started with Accra and all over the country and all of that. We know that there is serious political culpability, involvement. Because no matter how you try to enforce the law, there is some interference coming from people who are politically exposed. The previous government passed Act 995 to make it more punitive for anyone engaged in mining, fabricating equipment, financing illegal activity to be found culpable of the law. Akuntel Mining right after that was found culpable. Nothing happened. And we saw lawyer Martin Pebu and also engineer Kenneth write a petition to the IGP for investigation into this matter. We've not seen anything. I mean, fast forward, we've seen this thing come up again. They have resubmitted, asking for action. Nothing has happened. Just very recently, if you recall, there was some issue around the Anwen constituency where the MP is alleged to be involved in Galamsey, and it's even involved very much the discussion of the traditional authority also really wading into the matter, blaming the MP. I mean, we have not established whether it is true or not, but this is where it starts. When these issues come up, you need to deal with it swiftly, get to the bottom of it so that you prevent your appointees, people in government, from engaging in Galamsey. And then there was this issue about the recent field engagement and some NDC constituency persons saying that they needed to have been informed before any operation had been done. So this for me tells you that there's still a lot of top-down control within the system, and that's why it's not working. Then we also need to look at the manner in which we are even issuing licenses. There is a large-scale miners, there's a small-scale miners, and then now we have the community miners. I mean, this government is talking about bringing another layer, which is a medium-scale mining. I mean, we want to see how that goes, but at the moment, we have all of that. Who gets the permit? Where are they working? What are they doing on site? And even the issuing authority, Minerals Commission, where do they allow people to work and not to work? What is the due diligence? So EPA is in there to ensure that as a miner, you cannot mine and destroy the environment. There's Water Resource Commission, as I was mentioned. There's a buffer zone policy, which really limits where you can and how far you can go close to the river body. We are not implementing, a Minerals Commission issues a permit that even overlaps a major river basin or a river or a stream. That shouldn't happen. So if from the top, we are not getting the posture right, it sends a wrong signal to the people at the bottom, and they just go into the rivers and they don't care. Now, one more point before you go on. I mean, the communities want to stop Galamsey. That I can assure you. Those at the community level who are affected by the pollution, they want to stop it, but they are also getting support from the law enforcement agency. And that is why we have had issues where we are saying that, look, the police command at the various districts and municipalities where this is up, they need to sit up. If they are not up to their task, they need to be replaced.
Very well. All right, so good one there, Darabosu, Deputy Director for Arocha, speaking finally on the matter, or being the last to speak on the matter. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. Show been live from our studios here in Tesano, in Accra. You heard on the show Professor Sharif Mahmoud Khalid, Professor Patrick Usumi earlier, Honorable Chunibu Afuku, and of course Franklin Kujo. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Have a good afternoon.
Can you help me? Get me back to normal. Woo! Thank you for helping me. I'm dizzy. Okay. Hello, Wonder Space Explorers. Welcome to the Wonder Space Show with Miss Natalie.
There's so much to uncover. Are you an explorer? Yes! Then join us on an adventure.